There's no time.
Lost. Ties. Darkness. Tears.
The time is
13
o'clock.
Hey, people. It's episode 179.
Yeah.
We're doing...
Getting up there, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
We're going to have the 200th one, like, sometime this year.
Yeah.
I thought of it. Maybe we should do a live stream. Several people have asked us about doing a live stream for the 200th show.
Yeah, they're asking.
So maybe we should do that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's still, like, a couple months off, but...
We don't quite have the amount of subscribers that you need to do that successfully, but we could try it.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we just recently got over the 8,000 subscriber mark on YouTube, so that was very exciting. Yeah, yes. So this show, this is kind of like, I can't remember if this was something, it's kind of a combination of something you suggested and something that someone suggested a long time ago. This is going to be just kind of like a grab bag type of show, titled Mysteries of Ancient Rome.
Yeah.
Like, I think somebody asked me about doing Locusta, the ancient Roman poisoner, considered the first serial killer, at least the first female serial killer. So I wanted to talk about her. And then there was just, like, other stuff that I thought was interesting that I came across during my reading, like various weird archaeological finds, weird mass graves, Villa of the Mysteries in Pompeii, like all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to be talking about that in our usual random, aimless, slightly drunken sort of way.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys will enjoy it.
I'm pretty familiar with Rome. I read Decline and Fall of the
Roman
Empire. Yeah, the long version. Like the 3 huge fucking tomes.
Yeah.
Boy, that was fucking difficult to get through. It history does repeat itself. And of course you can't remember all the names.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of does the same thing over and over and over again, you know.
Well, people have a certain parameters.
Right.
That
right.
in a given situation, there's only like A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, and only the
results you're gonna get.
And really, only the greats would stand out. You know, guys like Commodus and shit like that. You know.
I was calling him Commodus.
Commodus. Yeah, I know what his palace.
Like a commode.
They emptied out his palace and found a bunch of damn sex slaves in there. So, a lot of them royals.
Figures.
Yeah, which is illegal.
They were doing all kind of crazy
keeping
shit
them
back
as slaves and stuff, you know.
All kind of crazy
Yeah.
shit, as we will soon discover. But yeah, so we'll get into that in a little bit. First, though, we're gonna do a couple shout outs. As I said, if you've noticed, like it does seem to be like more popular than I thought. But my witching hour stories that I read, that I've been putting up every Thursday, people seem to be really liking those, and I'm kind of jacked about it. So it's like, so those will keep coming up every Thursday, and thanks for everybody that has sent me messages and stuff like that about how cool they think it is, because I thought it was kind of cool to do. Also, I would like to thank our newest patron, whose name is Dominic. So hi there. Thank you very much.
Got another high roller there.
Yes, we
coming
do.
at us. $20 a month. Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, that's very much appreciated.
Yep.
Also, I would like to thank one of our who had already been a $20 patron, Liam. He actually sent me a donation on PayPal to cover the shipping for the T-shirt that
awesome.
we sent him, and I was like, "Oh man, you don't have to do that."
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that.
But he did it anyway, and that is really awesome.
Yeah, so I guess everybody got their T-shirts.
I guess so. Like,
Okay.
I've only heard from a couple people that got them. I think
say?
I have to send one more out.
Yeah.
We have to make one more.
Okay.
So whenever I go out and get the shirt, because actually we can probably just get the shirt while we're out instead of ordering it, because then it won't like take as long. But yeah, so
They seem to be satisfied.
It seems like most of the couple messages I got were very positive. So
Good.
you know, I thought they came out cool.
I thought they did, yeah.
You know, I'm just saying, since I'm the one that designed them and everything.
Right.
But yeah, I thought they came out pretty cool. Did you want to show off your new little robot there?
Oh yeah. Got great Mazinger.
Yeah, this is the latest addition to his collection.
Yeah, it's die-cast metal.
He has a huge
from
collection.
Japan, Bandai. This is part of the new. I think it's called the Dynamic Classic Collection, which I really like this sculpt because I know where they got this sculpt. They ripped this off my buddy Jaime. who owns another company that does this called HL Pro.
Yeah.
He owns HL Pro, and they were coming out with, it's a long story, but this particular kind of sculpt, which is kind of more elongated, he was doing it with his enemy robots, which I got some up there, and Bandai, which is a huge company, huge corporation, copied him. He did something. He was furious. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Industrial espionage.
Yeah. Well, they saw what he was doing, and they were going, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea."
Hey,
but
why
I
don't
still
we do
like
that?
Bandai's work, man. It's really good, and of course this is all fully articulated. It come with a bunch of stuff. These are expensive. I got it on sale. It was about $115 on sale, but sometimes I splurge and buy one. But no, I just grew up with them. I had these things since I was a kid back in the '70s.
Well, the ones they have now are much nicer.
I think I told people about the crazy Japanese cartoons I grew up watching.
Yeah. I think a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with them. Like I
Yeah.
became familiar with them after you told me
I was
about
big
it.
into Getter, Robo G, and Grandizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, didn't they dub some of them into English? Did they not?
yeah, and they mashed them up and made kind of like bastardized versions of the originals.
Yeah.
And then Bandai dumbed down a lot of its toys, or some of its select toys, and then entered it into a deal with Mattel, and they released them as the Shogun Warrior line.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember those.
I had a lot of those.
Yeah.
They were good, but the Japanese versions were a lot better.
Yeah.
They came with a lot more extra stuff. And, like I got some of the big jumbo ones up there. And, they came with like mixed match fists and stuff to give them extra playability. And they didn't sell them with like the wings. Like I got a Great Mazinger up there and he came with the little wings on the back, the little jet scranders, what they called it. And the big jumbo originally in Japan came with those big wings, but of course they didn't sell those. They didn't sell them to us
Because they
Yeah.
thought, you'll put your eye out.
Well, we didn't know what the average American kid didn't know what the original character was supposed to look like anyway, because we didn't have the shows.
Yeah.
So they just gave us kind of a dumbed down version of them.
They're just like, we'll just make those kids will buy anything.
And they were only
Dumb
$20. The
Yeah.
big jumbos. I think the Japanese original versions in Japan were probably closer to like 50 or 60.
Well, they were much nicer, right?
They were nicer. They came with more stuff. Well, because the kids knew who they were.
Yeah, that too.
So you couldn't have step on the Japanese kids. They knew what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So it would come with a big old package of shit, extra stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, Tom
But they
does have
charge them for it.
Tom does have a gigantic collection of all of these robots. Those are actually very nice. Those
Yeah, it's not
die-cast ones.
gigantic. I just try to. Most of them are die-cast metal. It's one of them. They either have to be big or they have to be die-cast metal. One of the two.
Yeah.
That-
But yeah,
that's
I think that's a big collection. It's like
Yeah.
there's
it's
several
$1,000.
shelves.
It's several $1,000s worth of shit.
It is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a very large collection.
Some of those are very rare. But
That's
yeah.
like much more than I've ever spent on the only thing that I collect, which is Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, I don't
episodes.
understand it. I don't understand it.
Well, everybody's got to have something.
No, I mean you should probably buy some more MST stuff.
Well, I don't really have the extra money to buy.
Yeah, you do.
MSTs. No, I really don't.
Send her some MST stuff.
I do like having it. I have most of the episodes, but a couple. I buy the box sets, that Shout Factory puts out, but I stopped buying them a couple years ago, just because I didn't have the extra money to buy them. Like every time they came out, because they would put out like 2 or 3 a year, and they're like $50 or $60, and I was just like, holy crap, man, I can't afford all that. Like I can't afford to keep up. I do have all of the episodes on that were burned, like to DVD, that I got off the what the fuck did they used to call that thing where you could get all the episodes for free? They don't offer all of them anymore, just because they don't want to step on Shout Factory's dick. But I think I got pretty much every episode through there. They're not great quality, because obviously they were just taped off TV and then burned to DVD. But, they're good to have for just like playing in the background or something like that. So they're not like super high quality, and they don't have all the extras and shit on there. But, I do try to get the box sets when I have extra money, but, that's not usually. So
You should have said something. I'd have bought you some.
I don't even remember how many I've missed out on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how behind I am on it, because they, like I said, they release at least 1 or 2 a year.
Had you said something, I'd have bought you some.
I forgot about it, honestly.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah.
Hey, we got to do the show.
Well, because, yeah. All right.
Okay.
So, like I said, this is kind of like a grab bag show of just shit that I thought was interesting. And like I said, you can throw in shit if you think of anything interesting that you find fascinating also. So like, we're not a huge plan about where I'm going with this, but the first thing I want to talk about, this is kind of like a brief news story that I came across. This is from early 2017, and the title of the article was "The Man with the Stone Tongue." Now, this was from a Roman Britain burial site in Northamptonshire, specifically in Stanwick. And they found a skeleton of a dude whose tongue had been cut out and then, like, replaced with a stone, like, before they buried him. Like, they put a stone in his mouth where his tongue was. And the other weird thing, too, is that he was also buried face down. Now, they have found, like, you know, other bodies that were buried face down in Roman Britain burial sites. However, the amputated tongue and the stone in place of the tongue is, as far as they know, a completely unique mutilation, and they're not entirely sure what it signifies.
Dude was a fucking liar, probably.
Well, they did consider that. They said, okay, well, here's where it could be. They said, now, the fact that he was buried face down, that is usually an indicator that this was a person who they thought was a threat, either because they were crazy or they were, like, super mean or something like that. And they would bury them face down, presumably so their corpse wouldn't, like, come back and get people. Because I guess if they try to dig their way out, they just dig their way further down. But they do have, like, other examples of that where bodies were buried face down, and it was always, like, a crazy motherfucker or, like, a mean motherfucker.
Yeah, he was probably some kind of treacherous dude that lied and sowed chaos. Something like that, probably.
Yeah, so it might be something of that nature. Now, they said alternately, this could be a crazy guy who cut off his own tongue for some reason. Although they are kind of running with the theory that probably this was done to him, you know, as a specific type of punishment, like you said.
Why if it was done while he was alive?
It likely because the archaeologist, I think his name is Simon Mays, the archaeologist who studied the skeleton, said that they found, like, a lot of evidence of infection, like, in the bones. And they said, now, if you cut a tongue out, you're going to get infected because there's so much bacteria and shit like that in the human mouth that it's going to get in there. And he's like, so we did find evidence of a lot of infection, like evidence of infection in the guy's bones and stuff. So they did figure that it was cut off while he was still alive. Like I said, whether he did it or whether someone else did it, they're not entirely sure. What they were saying was, apparently in Germanic law, there is a thing where if you were, for example, spreading malicious accusations against people, that was a known punishment, that they would cut your tongue out. However, they're not entirely sure if there were any laws to that effect in Roman Britain. They have not found anything of that nature so far, so they don't know if this was, like, a legal kind of thing or whatever. Now, another interesting thing, too, is they said, like I said, this is the only one they found where it was a tongue and it was, like, replaced with a rock. They said, however, they have found 10 other burial sites that had bodies in them that had a body part removed and replaced with something else, like in the grave. They said usually it's decapitation. Like, they will cut the person's head off and then they'll put, like, a big rock or a big pot, like, where their head would be. Like, almost, I don't know why that is, like, just to be a fuck you or whatever. And I'm not sure what they do with the heads, if they just, like, throw them someplace else.
Something kind of like what Native Americans believed.
Yeah.
That if you were missing a body part and you went into the afterworld, that maybe, you know what I mean, you'd be crippled over there.
Yeah, that was another thing that they had considered, yeah.
Right, so maybe they're just trying to give him a substitute body part so he's whole.
Yeah.
But for some reason they turned him upside down. It was just
face down. Like I said, that, and, you know, several archaeologists said that implies that this was someone who was a troublemaker or a criminal or something like that, because apparently in other sites that they found where people were buried face down like that, that's usually what that meant. And they speculate that it was because, like I said, they didn't want the dude coming back as a zombie. And
now, when was this guy buried, more or less?
They think it's probably, they think he was probably in his 30s. They said it's, like, probably from the 3rd or 4th century. And this is, yeah, and this is Roman Britain, like I said.
Yeah, still pretty pre-Christian, really.
Yeah, very
Christianity-
agricultural. Where this
Christianity-
area.
Christianity didn't take hold actually until hundreds of years later, more like 7th, 8th century. That's really when you saw it everywhere. But I think what you're talking about is you're talking about something almost kind of like what the ancient Egyptians would do. You know,
Yeah.
if what the things that they would remove, they'd either put it in a pot or, not so much ancient Egyptians, I guess, but they were just trying to be whole in the afterlife. So it's a probably kind of deal where the guy's tongue was cut out for one reason or another. They didn't really like him, but they didn't want him to be, in the afterlife forever, missing a tongue. Maybe they thought that
would kind of suck.
Might have been a little overkill or something,
Maybe so.
So they just put a rock in his mouth instead of a tongue, so he'd have a tongue in heaven.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's what the archaeologist, like I said, who was working on this, Simon Mays, he actually did say, and this is a quote from the article, it says, "The whole idea of replacing a severed body part with an object is interesting in itself. It could be an attempt to complete an incomplete body, or it could be an attempt to replace part of a body with something obviously inanimate like a stone or pot to prevent the corpse from being complete." Now, interestingly, that this particular skeleton was found all the way back in 1991. However, I guess there's so much Roman shit laying around in, like, England that it took this long, like, to have the manpower and, like, all the archaeologists to, like, finally get around to looking into this. Because the one cemetery where he was found apparently had 35 bodies in it that they found. As far as I know, this is the only one that had anything weird about it. So they're just assuming that there was something about this guy that made he was dangerous or mentally ill or something of that nature, because his burial was apparently different than any of the other burials.
Well, I'm looking at it, think about this. You're trying to bury this guy, you might know him. You probably know him. But his head's gone.
Yeah.
So you're laying him out in front of everybody else. It's kind of humiliating for him not to have a head. It's just not going to look right. So you just put a pot there.
Yeah.
To make it look a little bit better.
It's like more balanced.
Well, you're trying to show him some courtesy, like an attempt at trying to giving him his head back.
Yeah.
So they bury him like that. That's probably something. I'm going to lean more towards that.
I wonder if they would draw a face on it or something. That would be really weird.
Well, it probably doesn't look quite as weird, especially if, you're around candlelight and stuff.
That's true. I do kind of wonder, though. Yeah. I wonder if any... I don't think that I've seen anything that said that. Like, that they dug up any that had a pot that had, like, a smiley face painted on it or anything like that. But it's just like, wouldn't that be fucking funny if they found one that was like... Because they found some fucked up shit in, like, some Roman graves and stuff. And it's just like, it'd be horrible, but also be kind of funny.
One of those mosquitoes got in here, but I got him.
Yeah, because we keep opening the doors to let the kitties out on the porch. So, and in a related, not really related, but it's like a similar kind of thing, I found this other article that came out in June of 2018. And this was also in a Roman-era grave that was found in Cambridgeshire. Except in this case, there were two guys, and they were found with their legs chopped off at the knees and placed carefully by their shoulders before burial. So their skulls were also smashed in. They don't know what these guys did in particular to, like, piss somebody off. And they're not really sure. I mean, obviously it looks like the legs were cut off when they were still alive. So it's almost like they were trying to keep them from running away or something. I'm not entirely... Some kind of punishment. Yeah, it definitely was a punishment.
Yeah.
Because this is actually from the late Roman or early Saxon period. And the bodies were found, they were like at right angles to each other. And their heads were like turned away from one another. And where they were found was a gravel pit, which it was not a cemetery. It had been used as like a garbage dump. Yeah. So this archaeologist who's working on it said, and I quote, "Somebody really, really didn't like these guys." Yeah. He's like, "We didn't really find any human remains in this area except for these two guys. And then they found another guy right nearby who he was in. It was like this timber-lined well, and it had already begun to fill in. And then they found another body in there that had been chopped off at the waist, like a guy that was cut in half. So they didn't find his pelvis, they didn't find his leg bones, but his like the upper half of his torso and his head were still intact, and it looks like they had just kind of thrown him into this well, like by this garbage dump.
Yeah. Well, they did that kind of stuff.
They did, yeah.
I mean, I saw like medieval era. I saw a program about medieval era law books that they found. It had a lot of drawings in them. I don't remember if they were German or if they were English. I think they might have been English. But you should see how they practice law. It was a trip.
Yeah,
You know
there's
what I
some
mean?
crazy shit, man.
Yeah, if you had an argument with somebody, basically it was just a series of a bunch of controlled duels. And, like a duel between a man and a woman, you wouldn't think they did that, but they did that. And they would take the guy and put him, was it in the ground? Yeah.
Like in a hole?
They put him in a hole.
To handicap him.
And gave him a certain kind of weapon. He could barely reach her. And then she stood above him, but she was staked to the ground. With like a chain around her leg.
Yeah.
And they were trying to make it fair.
Right. They obviously put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, and like he would have a shield, but she could have like a hammer or something like that, They wouldn't give anybody swords because that was kind of like a weapon of nobility.
That's cheating.
No, it was a weapon of nobility. They couldn't have it. And it was weird. They were dueling with shields, too. And they had a whole variety of weapons that just people don't even know about. And this is medieval era. It was a shield that was shaped like a boat that had a bunch of spikes on the front and then blades on the end. And they said that they had skilled fighters that preferred that to a sword. And they would just kill each other with shields. Because they would give those to peasants to settle shit, because a peasant could have a shield.
Yeah.
It wasn't technically or legally a weapon. But you could put blades on it, though.
Yeah.
And it was still considered
like Odd Job in James Bond.
Well, it's kind of like here in the United States, you know what I mean? Gun laws here in the United States don't quite make sense, like you can't have a bayonet lug on it. Oh my God, it's terrible. You know what I mean? You can have an AK, but you just can't have a bayonet lug on it.
That's
you're going to go out and kill people with bayonets because you got an AK in your hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, when you run out of bullets, then you can just go.
Well, you could just have a knife, though. It doesn't matter. You're dealing with a spear.
I know.
All right? It doesn't make it any more deadly. It's just they didn't want it. You couldn't have it. Fucking stupid shit. I think all that's gone now. But,
Well, the thing about a shield, it's like you could pretty easily. I mean, you could probably pretty easily knock somebody out and beat them to death with it. I would
it had
think.
a spike on the front and spikes on the ends. It had two handles, and you could control it like this. It was just
Man.
It was a kind of a.
I think I'd
It was
rather
a
get
weapon.
killed by a sword.
It was a weaponized shield.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To get around those damn sword control laws. That's what it was.
It's like it's not a sword, it's a shield.
Not a sword,
with
it's a shield.
Thing
Yeah.
on it.
Right.
With the sharp thing on it. It's not a sword.
Right. And a peasant could own it. There's a loophole. There's loopholes. So they knew what they were doing, So,
I feel like the whole history of the world is just like down to fucking everything is loopholes.
Loopholes. Yeah, everything's fucking loopholes.
Because everything can be worked around.
That's why, man, I'm telling you. That's why some of these suckers and sad sacks today, depending on them, they think all the problems are going to be solved by some kind of fucking government. They will never solve your problems. They will make more problems. There will always be loopholes.
Well, like I said, pretty much everything can be worked around if you're
You can just work around everything. And especially, we're talking about Americans. For you people in the UK, maybe you're not aware of this, but Americans fucking cheat.
Well, duh.
Yeah, we cheat for a fucking living, okay? It doesn't matter what laws you give us, we're going to find a way around that shit. Yeah, and there's only one people of the world that's better at it than Americans. Brazilians. I grew up there. You can pass any law you want in Brazil. It's not going to make a bit of fucking difference. It just does. They go, nah, we don't like that. Nah. And even the cops are going to go, nah.
We'd rather not.
That's why I got a big respect for Brazilians. They know when to call bullshit. They're like, nah, we're not going to do that.
But yeah, so apparently the graves of these three unfortunate dudes, maybe they weren't unfortunate, maybe they were criminals and they deserved it. I don't really know.
That's something the legal law system did.
But they were found like during, I guess there was like a highway, I think it was the A24 or something like that was being like widened in Cambridgeshire, and they found like a whole bunch of like Roman era stuff in there. As far as I know, they found some human remains. These were like the main three bodies that they found. They did find a bunch of pottery and shit like that, but because they didn't find any walls or anything, so they don't think that this was a permanent Roman settlement. They think this was maybe a camp, like that was kind of like constructed by people that were like on their way to, to wherever it was they were going. So, it's not like it was a permanent settlement, but they do think that, they're not really sure what these dudes did, if it was just like if they were criminals and this was some kind of horrible punishment, but it's like, cutting the dude's legs off and then cutting the other dude in half. So they made somebody mad, clearly.
It sounds like something an old-fashioned legal system did to somebody.
Probably.
Some kind of punishment for cowardice or punishment for running away from
That's what they were thinking, because it was the legs specifically.
Legs, almost all those damn old-fashioned punishments usually directed whatever did the wrong.
Yeah, it always seemed like it was very on the nose. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever you did.
Cut your feet off.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't run anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, now apparently, like I said, this article was from June of 2018. And they said the teeth and the bones are actually, as fucked up and mutilated as they were, actually in really good condition. So they should be able to get like good carbon-14 dating and shit like that, where they can figure out at least where these dudes came from and like, about what time period that this was, when they were probably killed. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about, excuse me, the Villa of the Mysteries. Now, this is actually a suburban ancient Roman villa. It was a private residence, apparently. They're not really sure who owned it, on the outskirts of Pompeii. Now, obviously, it was buried by ash in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. However, it is remarkably well preserved. And there's like a lot of really cool like frescoes in there. One of the earliest extant examples of Roman painting. Although the mystery is that they're not entirely sure what... It's like a series of friezes that seems to show like a story, but they're not entirely sure what that story is. They have some ideas about what it might be.
Yeah, there's a lot of Roman stuffs like that. There are Roman stories that are recorded that we don't even understand. We don't understand what they symbolize.
Yeah.
In their mythology, because they're promoting values that we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
like I said, a lot of, and we talked about this, even shit that's like only 100 years old.
It's hard to figure it out.
It's hard to figure because the context, the social context has been completely lost. Like, you didn't live back then. You don't know. And even something like that where we have like copious writings from people of the period and like, we know what people were doing and whatnot, even then we can't figure out what exactly they were thinking or how exactly shit was working.
There was an important Roman religious tale, it was a mythos that promoted something. Somebody out there knows the names of the gods, the demigods. Some demigod runs down and grabs some nymph or sprite or some shit like that. She's supposed to be real virginal and beautiful. He grabs her. She can't get away from him, so she turns into a damn tree and stays a tree.
Like you do.
Like she does. And nobody knows what the fuck that means. What? Better to go out.
Be a tree?
Better to be a tree than give up the pussy? What does it mean? Don't be raped? Better to die than be raped? What does it mean?
I think that probably is the
protect your virtue at all costs.
That's kind of like I feel like that's probably because I feel like there are even more modern like stories in that have a similar theme.
Yeah.
And that does seem to be a similar theme in a lot of those types of stories where, for a woman, like her virtue, quote unquote,
she's better she died.
Yeah, it's like you can't get soiled.
Right.
Or, you should die.
You can't lose your status.
Yeah, because you're damaged goods. You're used up. No one will
I
ever
don't
watch
think
you.
that's what the deal was. I think they were trying to say that she was so pure that she would rather die than to lose that purity.
Yeah, like I said, that seems like that was a pretty common thing. Particularly, like I think a lot of that was like in medieval literature and stuff like that. I think there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in there. Yeah. But so I imagine that's probably could be totally wrong. I don't know.
It's not. See, the thing is that the stories aren't really narrated, and there's no commentary on them in the story. Yeah. You're supposed to understand what it means.
That's what I mean. And so it's like a lot of, that's what I mean about all the cultural context being lost, And even something as recent as 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when we had writing and shit like that, and we knew what all the words meant, it's like, but since you didn't live back then, you didn't get like all the weird like connotations that were meant by certain things, and you know, it's a shame because we'll never know. I mean, we can figure some of it out, you can piece some of it together, but I don't think we'll ever know completely.
Think if you were living thousands of years from now and all you have is like a few seconds from Star Wars. And you only have that damn scene where Vader goes, "No, I am your father." You will never know the fucking context of the meaning of that.
Yeah, that's exactly. And that's it for like thousands of years from now. They'll probably be debating that, and they'll probably also be
What does that
totally
mean? Who was this man? Did they actually live? Are they historical figures?
That's really funny to think about. Now I want to invent a time machine just for the sole purpose of going into the future and seeing if anyone's debating about that.
Yeah.
Or they might not even care because, like, I mean, I guess we're still talking about stuff that happened like 2,000 years ago. Not all the time, but, you know, people are still interested in it. So I guess people would still be talking about it.
They're going to look back on Disney Star Wars and go, oh, man, God.
I don't think so. I don't think they're really going to give I don't think they're really going to give a shit, honestly. Like I said, we're not worried about like what movies they were watching 2,000 years ago.
I want to see this Mandalorian thing, but I don't want to pay for it. They say it's a good series.
Well, yeah. You could probably see it somehow.
They're calling it Baby Yoda.
Yeah, it's Baby Yoda.
It's not Yoda, though.
Yeah.
You know, they just called the child. It's a different creature. It's a different person.
Well, yeah, because like I said, it's species. Yeah. Well, that's good that they put another one in there because, like, when you think about the movies, like when I was thinking about when I saw Empire Strikes Back as a kid, and you'd be like Yoda, and you thought it was just Yoda, and that was it. But then you had to think, oh, well, there's probably a whole race of Yodas. Yeah. Yodai? Whatever. I don't know.
No, Yoda. That's his name. Somebody knows.
Well, what is the Yoda species called?
I don't know.
What are they called?
I don't know. It's out there.
Somebody's going, well, I could Google it,
They got that in the expanded universe. You know, you could look it up.
Because, yeah, like I said, because, you know, Chewbacca's a Wookiee. Well, what's Yoda then? I don't know. I'm not that much of a geek.
I'm looking at it and I'm just going, it looks like a gnome or something, you know?
It's cute.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just funny how quickly that Baby Yoda thing like caught on in the fucking popular culture. I've seen I haven't even seen The Mandalorian, and it's like I just see memes for like every fucking day.
You can't give a Star Wars toy around, but they didn't have that damn Baby Yoda. Everybody wanted to buy it. When that thing came out, everybody's buying that shit.
Well, yeah, see? Because it's cute as hell.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never even seen the show, and I wouldn't mind having one, because look how adorable that shit is. His big old eyes and shit. It looks like a little baby.
Yeah, if either of you guys got that shit recorded, send it to me on disc. I don't want to pay for that shit.
You don't want to pay for that shit?
You know the address.
What's it even on? What is it on?
It's on Disney. I'm not going to pay for Disney.
Oh, it's on the Disney streaming thing?
Yeah, it's on Disney streaming. And I would just fucking watch that shit fucking all in like 2 or 3 days. And then,
well, they probably do like I mean, Shudder and Netflix and everything like that does like what, a 7-day free.
They don't know. They won't fucking. They need to start selling that shit a la carte.
Yeah,
where you can subscribe just to a certain series.
Although, like I said, it's a lot better than it used to be, because remember back in the day, and like I said, I knew this because my dad worked for a cable company since the early 80s. And basically, we used to bitch because you could only have so many packages. There was like, the lame package, the better package, the one with all the pay channels, like all the movie channels. Yeah. And it's like, so you ended up with like 100 channels, 500 channels, whatever. And it's like, you didn't really want most of them. And it was just kind of like a pain in the ass to have to fucking scroll through and like look for the channel you wanted.
We get cable here almost for free along with our internet connection. And I've never really looked at cable. It's only when the damn Walking Dead was on.
Yeah, we watched Walking Dead on
about it. But I looked through the guide one time. I was just fucking laughing at how many channels there are now on cable, and how many of them it's just shit.
Well, the thing about them is that a lot of them, it sounds like a lot.
Infomercial channels.
Yeah, there's that, but it's like it seems like a lot, but a lot of them are kind of repeated, because there'll be a channel and then there'll be like an HD version of that channel. And
then there was a pay-per-view section in there that had porn.
Yeah.
That looked interesting, but I'm like, yeah, you can get that shit for free.
Well, yeah, it's like if you're paying for porn, come on. Yeah. It's the 21st century. Who pays for porn? Unless you have like really, really specific like shit that you like. I don't really know.
Why pay for porn when you can make your own?
That's
There you
exactly
go.
right.
We got all the technology in the world.
All the
All the
technology.
technology in the world. Go ahead,
That's
Jenny.
right.
Come on.
All right, so we were talking. What were we talking about? Okay, yeah, the Villa of the Mystery. So yeah, so this villa is kind of like set apart a little bit from. I think it's only like a quarter of a mile away from like the main site of Pompeii. They've also found some nearby stables and stuff like that that had like the remains of horses and stuff in there, which is like fucking kills me. There's like 2,000-year-old horse skeletons. That's crazy. So
that doesn't happen. I've worked around barns. You know, it's my family is fucking involved in the horse business. Anyway, you don't bury a damn horse inside a barn. That's only one.
Well, no,
thing.
they're not. But they were. It was
burned down.
No, it was buried under the ash from the volcano, like Pompeii.
Oh, this is where now? Pompeii. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. That's why nobody buried
I didn't
them.
see that. I didn't see that setup right there.
Yeah.
Say,
Well,
no,
you
don't
weren't
bury
listening.
horses.
That's why. Yeah, it's
would only
Pompeii
be
was
a
buried
barn
under
fire.
ash.
That would only
it
be
was
a
buried
barn.
under ash.
Yeah, that would only
just
be a
like
barn
everything
fire.
else was. Because, like I said, I remember like all those horrifying. I remember when I was a kid, my Strange Stories, Amazing Facts book that I brought up a bunch of times on this show, and it had a section of like a little article and stuff like that about Pompeii, and it had like the pictures of the people. Which is always the first thing that like freaked me out about because that's like a real person. And
they were gagging and dying.
And they were just like, like they had like horrible, like,
Yeah.
you know, the positions of their bodies and like their fucking mouths were open and you could tell they were like freaking like, oh shit.
Some of them I think were killed pretty quickly by that.
I hope so.
Heat.
Shit, man.
But other ones looked like that they were gagging and coughing.
Yeah.
As the ash was falling, and they were kind of twisted, so I think they were trying to keep above the ash while they were gagging.
Yeah, can you imagine? God, that must have been horrible.
And then right next to the person would be a dog curled up and shit. It's funny.
Yeah, there's one that's just like a baby, like in a cradle and stuff. Ugh, it's
and then
horrible.
people fucking... Man, if you guys haven't seen it, man, go check that shit out. It's fucking quite shocking in a way. It's very human.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, you can go see it. I mean, you
yeah.
could go to Pompeii and like walk through there and look at it.
As soon as you see like the situations of the damn plaster casts of the bodies, you can tell like little tableaus of what happened.
Yeah.
You know, like people in a corner all trying to fucking protect one another as they were dying. And there might be a little child in there, or there might be a dog next to the person. You know what I mean? It's kind of touching, you know, because even though that was, you know, over 2,000 years ago, they were still people.
Yeah, those are still people. There's,
and
those families.
They were acting like people, and you can kind of get a feel of like, oh, damn, you know what I mean? This one was trying to save that one. They were trying to die together, you know?
I think that's what...
They were trying to comfort each other while they were dying. You know, you could see that kind of shit going on.
That's what freaked me out the most about, like, seeing, like, all those bodies, like, in the pictures and stuff like that, is that... You know, I think when you see, you know, other types of things like mummies and stuff like that, that's very, I mean, those are dead people too, but it's very stylized. And it's like, you know, that those people, you know, were just, that was prepared like after death and everything like that. So it's like, you don't get the sense of, I guess, like immediacy that you get with like the bodies at Pompeii, because like you said, you can tell what these people were doing exactly the moment that they died, and how horrifying it must have been to just be like in your house and all of a sudden look out the fucking window and the volcano's erupting, and then there's like fucking just ash just raining down on you and you can't go anyplace.
Yeah. And then there were just like weird shit, like you'd find little slave girls, dead slave girls and shit, German slave girls, you know. And they would, sometimes you could tell they were kind of overworked, other times they'd have little jewelry on them, which would mean they were kind of favored, you know what I mean, by whoever owned them. You know, it's just weird, you know. So it's weird to be able to look back in time like that.
Yeah,
I think it was Pliny the Elder or Pliny the Younger. I don't remember which one of them survived. I think the Elder died and the Younger survived, but they wrote about the eruption.
Yeah. Well, he saw it, didn't he?
Saw it, and they ran towards it.
Yeah.
And
he's like, cool, I'm going to check this shit out.
Yeah, and they were like, no, master, because all his slaves were trying to stop him. He was on a boat at the time. And now I might have this wrong. This is all, you know, my drunken memories from memory.
My drunken memories.
But they were out there on vacation on the damn yacht, basically. And he's ordering his fucking crew to go in there. And he had slaves with him going, no, don't go, you know, don't go. That kind of shit. He goes, no, we got to get closer. They were natural scientists. Pliny was.
Yeah.
And he wrote whole books on nature and science, and he was not religious. He was an atheist.
A lot of them were back then.
Yeah, you read writings and shit from this era, especially like Julius Caesar when he was going out pacifying certain provinces. As an ex-military man, I read his writings, and man, it sounds like it was just written yesterday.
A lot of the stuff they
it's
wrote
just
is
like,
very
fuck.
modern, I
Yeah.
found.
And, you're definitely dealing with a guy with like 150, 145 IQ. I mean, these are not dummies.
Yeah.
And they sound very, very modern. It's like something that was just written yesterday. And some of the political commentary sounds like it was written today.
Yeah.
But they had different standards, you know what I mean? Like fucking Julius would be like, yes, and we attacked the compound for a good 2.5 hours, and then once we broke through, I let the men go in and rape and pillage for a little while so they could blow off steam, and then I called them back off, and we went back to fighting. And then, I rewarded them later. I let them go rape and pillage a little bit more, and then I told them to come back.
Go fucking rape my son.
Yeah, go rape and pillage my sons. It's kind of, they didn't play back then.
I mean, as smart as they were, and as on the ball as they were, they still hadn't gotten a hold of that whole women are humans too thing.
Well, they didn't care.
Exactly.
They didn't care. In those days, if you were not, the Romans were right and good. Non-Romans were basically barbarians, and they needed to be pacified. Now, both sides, I think, had bad habits. Okay, but they were a very structured type. It's a civilization where might made right. If you were a badass, you could do whatever you wanted. Men were in charge, and alpha men were in charge of regular men, and other men were betas, and they literally gave up the booty sometimes to these dudes. You know what I mean? That was the thinking of the day. It was almost
they
like,
would just punch or butt fuck you into
it
submission.
was almost, imagine like a maximum security open air prison. That's kind of the way.
That's actually a good comparison.
That's kind of like the way.
That's pretty much what it was like.
And you were just so man that other men were women in comparison to you. You know what I mean? It's that kind of shit, And it had to do with status, and there were different classes like equestrians and patricians. And if you were a patrician male of high standard, of high income and high power, you ruled everything underneath you. So it was super. It was a super
Hierarchical,
hierarchy. Yeah. And that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And that was the natural order to the thing. This whole thing about equality, man, that's all bullshit back in ancient Rome. That was not something that was real. Everything was about the hierarchy.
Well, I don't even think it was something that occurred to them, really.
No, even think about it. That would have been something totally unnatural to them.
I mean, I do think that it occurred to a few
Philosophers.
Philosophers. It did occur to them, because I have read ancient Greek and Roman writers that sounded very like a very Enlightenment era philosopher. So it did occur to some people, but I don't think they had enough say or power to.
The Romans were a macho fucking people. And quite stylish. They were quite stylish. They didn't like body hair. You know what I mean? They liked to be very fit.
They were manscaped.
They worked out. They understood strength and beauty. They were big into that. They worked out. They went to those damn bathhouses and baths and open air baths. They were basically nudists, too.
Yeah.
Men, women, children, all mixed in together, basically.
It's like, check out my good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I think the men and the women on certain were actually separated in the bath. I think. It maybe depended on.
I mean,
the
Roman Empire was pretty big, so I'm not really sure. It might have been different in different locations.
Yeah, and also things changed over time.
Yeah.
So, and also there was a lot of private stuff going on, and then there was like, they even had the whole Epstein Island thing down. The island of Capri was basically the Roman version of Epstein's Island. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They had all that. Nero.
That's where you could go if you wanted to see a donkey show, or you could.
Was it Nero? Excuse me. That was Uncle Tiberius's fucking island. That's where Caligula, fucking.
That's right.
Caligula was kind of raised there when he. Yeah, that.
We should do a whole show about that douche.
That island fucked little Caligula up, and when he came out, he fucking hated humanity. He took it out on the Romans. And it just tells you, it just goes to show you that your ruling class is not who you think they are. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if you don't believe
that will always be true.
just read ancient Roman history and understand that that's happening in most countries.
Yeah.
The ruling classes are like that.
The sad thing is it's probably a little bit better than it was back then. But, see, it's still the same shit, though.
Well, I think what made it better back then is that they were open about it. They didn't hide it. They weren't deceitful about it.
Well, because what would anyone have done about it? Nothing.
They knew what was going on the island of Capri.
And everyone's like, meh, not my problem.
Technically, it wasn't illegal.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like probably people wouldn't have even been bothered. But it was just kind of like back in the old days when, a 20-year-old man could marry like an 11-year-old girl and no one batted an eye because that was just what happened. They're like, hey, she's had her period. She needs to start having kids. Come on. She's ready to go.
She's ready to go.
That's, well, nowadays people be horrified, but it's like, and rightly so. But back then.
On Capri, it was open that there were little children, men, little girls, and little boys running around dressed as nymphs and pans, or nymphs and satyrs, and they were running around in the wilderness. They're little slave children, sex slave children. Yep. And this is the emperor.
Yep.
And it was legal.
Yep.
That's some shit there, man. That's wild.
That's what I mean.
And if you made Uncle Tiberius mad, he'd throw you off the damn cliff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we'll kind of get into that a little bit when we talk about Locusta the Poisoner.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like it was almost just kind of like knocking off your relatives, like to get to the throne or whatever, was totally not. I'm not saying that it was legal necessarily, but it was just
part of tradition.
It was just kind of something that you did.
Yeah.
And like everyone, like, somebody died. It's like, what? I don't know. It was maybe they just were sick or whatever,
well,
and everyone was just like, okay.
You have to understand that all of us alive right now in the United States, we grew up and were raised in an environment of law and order where there was a legal system that we could kind of trust to make sure justice happened. In theory.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're rich enough here, it looks like you can avoid that. All right.
Yeah, obviously.
Now, we have to remember that law enforcement and this legal system that we have now is actually not that old.
No, it's not.
The United States didn't have police, really, until, not modern police, until maybe the mid-20s.
Something like, early
like
20th century.
Yeah. Before then, there were no cops.
Not really.
So go fucking figure.
I mean, not like cops nowadays.
No. A cop back then was basically just like a security guard. And everybody carried guns.
Yeah.
Everybody did. Because there weren't any cops. Every man was a cop. And every woman was a cop, too. Women carried little purse pistols. And it was like a bee colony or an ant colony. A bee colony, everybody carries a stinger. And now the violence was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was as bad as the 70s, though. 60s and 70s was pretty bad.
I guess it's kind of hard to compare because the records are... I mean, the 70s, they obviously have really good records, but
and
back
the situation, the culture of the time.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a different thing.
So, because we're so-called civilized people that grew up with cops and courts and shit...
and expectations.
And expectations... It's hard for us to kind of put ourselves the way it was back then, but it's weird we have to... It's weird when you think about it that, only a few generations back, there weren't any police.
Yeah.
All right.
You just kind of had to cover your own ass.
Yeah, humans don't actually need police. Most civilizations never had them. You can go back to the old ancient Assyrians and the fucking Persians. They didn't have cops.
Yeah.
It was just a hierarchy. The hierarchy is what kept the order, and that's what this is all about.
Well, you did something bad, they'd cut you in half, just like that poor guy.
Somebody higher rank than you would go, I'm gonna kill you, and they would do it.
Well, yeah, no one would really do anything about it. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. So, Villa of the Mysteries, like I said, was this one particular house, a private residence that's not that far from Pompeii. And as I said, it is remarkably well preserved. It wasn't actually like, when the volcano erupted, it didn't like fuck up the walls or anything like that. It was buried under the ash, but it like preserved it. So pretty much the walls and ceiling and stuff like that are intact. And you can actually see there's some cool, on YouTube, there's some cool, like 3D, like videos like that go all around the villa, and like you can see like what it looks like, and all the paintings look remarkably well preserved. Like a couple of them have some like chunks of plaster that fell out and stuff like that, but all the paint looks like really vibrant and stuff. So the villa itself is actually named the Villa of the Mysteries because of these particular paintings, which are actually only in one room of the residence. Now, they think this room might have either been a dining room, like a dining room type thing, like which they would have called it a triclinium, or it might have been like a small bedroom of the woman of the house, which would be called a cubiculum. They're not really sure which of the two that it was. So these frescoes that are on the walls, they think they come from the early or middle 1st century. Now, they're not entirely sure what is happening in these frescoes. However, the most common interpretation is that this is depicting a woman who is going through an initiation into a cult of Bacchus. Right? So
Yeah.
this was like a...
Bacchus was a cult all about booze, getting drunk.
It's the getting drunk cult.
It's a getting drunk cult.
We need to start one of those.
It makes sense. A lot of people... when... In English, the word spirits, it usually goes to describe hard liquor. It's spirits. Because they didn't really know how liquor worked. Why is it you drink something and all of a sudden you start acting funny and feeling funny?
Must be the spirits.
It's like spirits.
You're possessed.
So, yeah. So, like, way back in the day, especially during the Roman times, they had wine. They didn't have distilled alcohol, but they had wine. And they would get drunk, and they couldn't explain why. So they thought a spirit was going through them. And, anything that's spiritual is good. And if you feel good, then it's good. So they had a god that they called Bacchus, that was the spirit that flowed through you when you were drinking all that wine.
That was the party god.
It was the party god. Yeah, and religions. I think a lot of religions started that way. Hallucinations, inhaling fucking. Because the oracles were inhaling fucking gases that would make them fucking speak gibberish and shit. And getting high was a serious. Was like one of the main parts of religions. Like for instance, I'm just going to go out on a limb, all right? Moses saw God in a burning bush, all right? What bush was this? How close was he standing to it? And was he breathing that smoke? Okay.
Was this a marijuana bush?
Yeah, what kind of bush was this? All right, there's a lot of little, and then like, in Revelation, somebody fucking takes a little book in his hand and eats it and all of a sudden sees God. What's on this book? A little piece of paper.
It's like early LSD.
Yeah, they're talking about LSD. What are you talking about? So, there's no telling. Because...
I suspect that you're probably right about that. Because, like I said, if you just go around, like, eating plants and various things, and not knowing that it's the plant that's causing that, or even if you do know, I mean, if they didn't have any understanding of, like,
well, they had no understanding of a cellular...
Right.
Cells... metabolism,
right?
Chemicals, none of that was known. All they knew is that you ate something and all of a sudden a spirit went through you.
And you started acting
fucking acting funny, you started seeing things and understanding things and going, wow, god damn. And then you're coming up with stuff, and then you're having new ideas and you're tripping the fuck out in your mind. So in the mind of these people, this is God.
Yeah.
Or a godlike being that's doing this to
them.
Yeah,
because it's so out of your normal day-to-day life.
Yeah, and they don't know what consciousness is, or the or what an altered consciousness is, or chemicals or anything. So they're going to come up with a damn religious explanation of why they got drunk or why they got high.
It seems like a good cover story, man. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they had fun, so therefore it was good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, much more fun than like the later, like the Victorians and stuff like that. It was like, oh, if it's fun, you need to stop doing it.
Although
because it's bad.
Although they were doing
They were doing it too.
They were doing shit too. They were smoking hemp.
Well, yeah,
They were
all of that
smoking hemp
shit.
before that.
Well, and all the opium and all that kind of stuff was legal.
And also the precursors of fucking ecstasy were available. during that time. They were messing with that too.
Yeah. So I do definitely feel like you're probably right about that. About all of the different plants and booze and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
like
burning
the
bushes
source
and
of...
seeing God in a burning bush, and the burning bush said some shit.
Because
to
seriously,
you.
like you said, if you read the book of Revelation, how high was that dude that wrote that?
Yeah.
Super high.
Yeah, and getting to Genesis, with the burning bush, I'm never going to say that Moses saw a burning bush, all right? It's just that somebody inserted a burning bush into the story of Moses because they were fucking with the burning bush. They saw God too, so they're because Moses was not a historical figure. Just no way.
Yeah, I don't.
I've already been through all that. No, that's a mythological character.
Well, they have counterparts in earlier pagan belief systems.
Yeah.
Jesus does, Moses does, like all of the main biblical characters.
Jesus is a reboot of Moses in many ways.
Yeah.
So,
Well, a lot of like the Old Testament stories are kind of like repeated, like rebooted in the New Testament as well. And the ones in the Old Testament are kind of reboots of older
and
various pagan stories.
Moses is a reboot of Sargon.
Yeah.
Sargon of Akkad.
Yeah. So this woman in this series of paintings, they think that she's going through this initiation to become a member of this cult of Bacchus, mainly because there are some other like figures in the paintings that they think are maenads, which are female followers of Bacchus, because they've seen them like in other artwork before. So these maenads are usually shown as like they have like really swirly like drapery and stuff, and they're usually seen like dancing. And they have been seen on like Greek pottery and stuff like that. And this was like even before this particular cult had spread to this part of the world. Now there are other differing interpretations. Like some people think it's a girl getting married and stuff like that. But it does seem that with these particular other figures in there that look like they're dancing and stuff, this does seem like it's kind of showing an initiation, right? I believe it's 7 friezes or 7 panels. So in the first panel, there is what appears to be a Roman noblewoman, and it looks like she's walking up to a priestess or something like that who's sitting on a throne. And then there's like a little boy reading a scroll, which, if the being initiated into the cult of Bacchus thing is correct, then this is the boy like announcing the initiation or making a declaration of it or whatever. Now on the other side of the throne, there's another woman who is presumably the initiate. She's wearing like this purple robe and a crown made out of myrtle. And she has a sprig of laurel and a tray of cakes, which it seems like she is, that may be some kind of offering to like whoever it is that she's initiating into. So then there's like the second mural, which has this other woman who is presumably another priestess or somebody like that. And she has like some assistants or something with her, and they're preparing what is called a lignon basket or something like that. I guess that's how lignon basket, okay. Which is just like a basket that they put like offerings in, usually like figs or something like that. And then on one side, there's like this horsey looking guy, and he's playing a lyre. They're presuming that this is a representation of Silenus, who was the companion of Bacchus, who was kind of horsey looking. So that's another point in the Bacchus thing's favor. The third mural shows that there's like a satyr, and he's playing panpipes. And then there is a nymph suckling a goat. So nice.
Yeah. They did that kind of shit.
like they do. Yeah. Now, the initiate is in this one, but she seems like she's freaking out for some reason. And then like she's not in the next few, murals. So they're assuming that maybe at this point she's kind of like gone into what they call katabasis. I think that's how you pronounce it, or katabasis, which is literally like a descent into the underworld. And that maybe she's like wigging out because she's going into the underworld, and then like later she'll be back and she'll be changed because she's not in like the next couple of friezes, right? So because she's kind of like looking, and she looks like super horrified and like freaking out and everything. So then the next one, which is the fourth mural, that one shows like a satyr, and then the horsey guy is like giving him a bowl of wine. And then there's another satyr, and he has like this really scary mask. And then the satyr that's drinking the wine like sees the mask reflected in the bowl, which they think might be a reference to the mirror that Bacchus stares into, like it's that Orphic rites thing. And then there's a goddess in this one who they think might be Ariadne or perhaps Semele, I guess is how you pronounce that. And Bacchus is lying across her lap. Now, the fifth one, the initiate returns, but she looks different. Like now she has a staff and she has a cap on. So presumably her initiation has been completed at this point. She's like kneeling before this figure who was apparently the priestess. And there's also like a female figure with wings that looks like it's whipping her, which, nice. Then there's like a dancing figure next to her, which they think is a Maenad, which is, a follower of Bacchus. And this other female figure with a gown on that is carrying what they call a thyrsus, which is, I guess, is an initiation symbol of Bacchus. And it's like this, they're like made of like fennel, like these long strips, stalks of fennel, and then it's like has a pine cone on top. So I guess that was something that they gave them. And then the sixth one, which is the second to last, they're putting new clothes on her. Like this is her new identity or whatever. And then there's Cupid and he's holding up a mirror like, hey, see how awesome you look now that you're initiated into the cult of Bacchus or whatever. Yeah. And then there's another image of Cupid also. And then in the last mural, they show the initiate, the same woman. She's like on a throne and she has like this really elaborate costume on. So that's why, I mean, to me, that seems more like, I know like other archaeologists said like it could be a wedding ceremony, but it does seem to me that this is more like
this is
initiation into a cult type of thing. I mean, when you see the murals and you hear the way they're described and like, what each figure probably represents, I think that's probably what it is depicting.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about.
Which is interesting because it could be that the person that lived in this house, because like I said, they don't know who lived in this house, may have been an initiate into this cult. You know what I mean? And they were showing like their symbolic initiation into it.
This is a typical Roman cult thing.
Yeah.
There were lots of these. Actually, okay. What's a good way to put this? I don't want to offend anybody. Rome was very famous for having fake religions and fake foreign religions. All right? You could go through there and say they had a cult of Isis, which is an Egyptian fake religion. They had what was his name? What was the name of that damn cult? It was a Persian cult.
Which one, Mithras?
Mithras, yeah. They had a cult of Mithras, which was the Roman version of Mithraism.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they had a fake version of Judaism in Rome. You know it as Christianity.
Yeah.
All right? Not to make anybody mad. But,
well, that's how it started out.
That's how it started out. And how this would go down is there was a lot of immigration into Rome. People from all over the world would go to Rome. And they would bring their religions with them. And they would end up in these damn neighborhoods, all living in there together. But as time would go on over the generations, these new Romans, and I don't think they were all citizens either, because how to become a citizen in Rome is very different. But they were Roman subjects, would be a good way to put it. They realized that their religions weren't quite as cool as the other religions that were around them. So they would Romanize them.
Yeah.
All right. They would turn them into something that would fit in better. Now, Rome had a big religious industry. And these foreign religions had to adapt to the market and be able to compete in this market. So they all became Romanized. The Egyptian ones did. The Persian ones did, and the Judean ones did, which created Christianity. And usually what a cult was it was a small religion under the imperial cult of Rome. Rich people all worshipped the imperial cult. Poor people had their own ethnic cults. Usually how this went down is you went to a place, they called it a temple, but you went to this place and you would have like a multimedia experience, okay? There'd be a live stage show.
Yeah.
Maybe you would drink alcohol. Maybe you would drink some kind of weird drugs, and you'd watch this live reenactment of something, some kind of an initiation rite. Like if it was Mithraism, it was some kind of a Mithras coming out of a rock and then transforming in a Last Supper, and then him sacrificing a bull, and then him somehow cheating death. But we don't know the story because we only have the frescoes. We don't have the books.
Yeah, they're not
saying,
entirely sure like what the story is exactly.
Later on, Christians destroyed all those books, so
Yeah.
we don't know. And this is the same kind of deal. There was some kind of story that went along with those frescoes.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Christianity was also one of those.
Yeah.
They actually would reenact, depending on what year we're talking about, they would probably reenact the crucifixion. And somehow Jesus ascending to heaven or surviving in heaven, because, I'm going to refer you back to Dr. Robert M. Price. He's been a fucking guest on the show. This guy really knows his shit. Christianity evolved a lot over the years. If you look at the oldest Christian writings, it is not the Gospels. It's, in fact, the Pauline epistles. And the Pauline epistles don't mention anything that happened in the Gospels. No earthly Jesus, no earthly, no miracles or anything. It was just a Jesus in heaven being hung
he was
up.
a largely spiritual figure.
Yeah. It seems to be one of the sons of God that they're talked about in the Old Testament, like in Genesis. Sons of God, of course, are the angels, and it's an angel above Michael that you can pray to be saved from God's law. So that way you're not being judged by the law, you're actually being saved by grace. Because Jewish law was too hard. You couldn't get around it. You were going to hell, goddamn.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's too hard.
What? I can't do all this shit. Come on.
It would be equivalent to, say, being here in the United States, a whole bunch of people from the Middle East moving in here that believe in Islam, and over a few generations, Islam isn't really fitting in too well, so they make Islam a more American. You know what I mean? They make it more like Christianity. Well, that's what the ancient Romans were doing. They were moving into Rome from places like Egypt and places like Persia and places like Judea, and making their religions more Roman.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you were from Judea, and the Jews of that time are not the modern Jews you would know today, they're not the Hasidic Jews. This is a long time before that. The Jews we're talking about in this era actually worship an entire pantheon of gods, kind of like the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans themselves. So they go into Rome and they change their Old Testament-based gods to make it more Roman. Well, damn, man. When you really kind of look at the literature and everything, if you were to Romanize ancient Judean or ancient Jewish religions, it would look like Christianity. It's a perfect fucking Roman knockoff of Judaism. And that's what Christianity is. It is not Middle Eastern. It's not even... It's a Roman copy of a Middle Eastern religion.
Or it just has that kind of veneer over it. Because, I feel like that's something that happens everywhere, just very organically. Because people move into a new area. It's like they're going to pick up... Over a few generations. They're going to pick up influences from their new culture. Like, other people that they meet that are different from them. So it's like, you're just going to... It's going to all become, kind of intertwined together. Yeah. And that's, a very organic process.
Yeah, and if Judaism goes into Rome and becomes Romanized, the only way it's going to survive is to adopt the Roman cult model. That's the way the other religions survive, and that's you go to a temple, you fucking pay for an experience, and you watch a theater act, you know what I mean, and hear songs and sing songs. that's what happened. That's what happened to Judaism, and that's where Christianity came from. All right, and that's what they're talking about in this religion. That's what they were talking about in Mithraism.
Yeah.
Today we would know it as the club experience. You go to a club.
That's what I was going to say. It's almost kind of like they were just going. It's like it was just little fan clubs. And they would just kind of go.
You're going to like a nightclub, and you're singing, and you're dancing, and you're taking or drinking something that gives you a spiritual experience, and you're watching a live performance, and then, and that's why the cult of Bacchus was. It was all about how much could you drink. And, you know what I mean? How much could you drink, remain standing and singing, and freaking. Yeah.
They were playing quarters. It was off the chain.
Right. Well, we think of churches today as something very pious for old people. And
it's like really boring.
And it's real serious and shit. But Rome was off the chain. They didn't play that. There were so many cults and so many temples throughout the capital city.
You had to have the funnest one.
They had to be fun.
So everybody.
And it was all about money, and all the technology was going there.
Yeah.
Like all of Rome's best mechanical technology went to these clubs, cults.
Yeah.
But it was a club experience.
Yeah.
Like a nightclub. And
which that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
Like you said,
that was
kind of that was like your main entertainment option.
It was the nightclub, it was the movies, it was the fucking drug experience, it was everything. It was dating, it was everything all in one. And some of those cults, of course, involved sex.
Yeah.
So, not the ones we talked about, but there were other ones that involved fucking orgies.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is clubs, nightclubs. And
I don't think
that's
really
the
that
analogy.
Yeah.
It was the nightclub, but with a spiritual element to it.
So you could feel good about going.
Yeah.
About going and getting fucked up and getting in an orgy.
Everybody who's in the know understands that most of these cults ran what you'd call kind of like holy prostitution.
Yeah.
Where there were prostitutes that raised money for the cult. Mm-hmm. Like Scientology. Because not a big difference. But
that's what I mean. The shit's the same, like from time immemorial. It hasn't changed at all. Because, like I said, humans are, we're very diverse and stuff like that. But we have parameters. I mean, there's only so many different results you're gonna get, from reactions.
And it's real popular today to bag on Christianity. You know what I mean? But I don't bag on it. I come from kind of a Christian background. But I understand what it is and where it comes from. It's better to believe in something than to believe in nothing. And these were old ways, and it was all about memes. Basically, there's all these little memes to give you values, and you know what I mean, to give you cultural values.
Well, it seemed like the quickest way to impart that.
Yeah, you're dealing with people that half of them couldn't read.
Yeah, so it seemed like kind of a shorthand way of like, hey, we're just all going to do this.
You tell them stories, and through those stories, they learn values.
Yeah.
Like Star Wars, same shit. Through the story, they teach values.
It always comes back to Star Wars. Oh my God, why did the camera go so blurry right then?
I don't know.
Because you're moving around too much.
Right, yeah. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. That's why Hollywood tries to do what it does. It tries to promote values through what it's doing. Whether they're accepted or not, a lot of the shit that Hollywood fucking makes today, I think it's fucking crap. But there's good stuff coming out of there too. But you're talking about ancient cults were the clubs and the theaters of the day.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So we've gone a little bit past the hour mark. So I guess we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the really fun shit, mass graves, and also Locusta the Poisoner.
Okay.
I've been dying to talk about her. Okay. She's like super scary, but also super kind of fun. All right, yeah, he's gonna go make another drink. So we are gonna take a break, and we will be back in just a few minutes.
Hey, what you doing, sweetheart? Yeah. Oh, he's just rubbing. You rubbing up on Mama's desk. I know. You like to play around and look at your little butt waggling? You're the most hilarious butt in all catdom. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It's always wiggling. That's why I call her Wiggle Butt. Hey. Yeah. I know it feels good, huh? You're so cute, Pokey. Why are you so cute? Why are you so cute? Oh, she's getting on here. She's getting on here. Nope, I freaked her out. I freaked her out. She's like, I'm gonna go eat this. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're getting in trouble? Okay, you're just gonna sit there and chill out? Okay. You be a good girl. You be a good girl? You just hang out with mom and daddy? Okay.
You love true crime. I love true crime. And I've spent the last 3 years compiling a series of the most intriguing unsolved murders of the 20th century. It's called The Faceless Villain, and Volume 3 is available now. Featuring such fascinating cases as the Ketty murders, the Carey babies case, the Frog Boys, the Alcasar murders, and the Inokashira Park dismemberment incident, The Faceless Villain Volume 3 is an involving exploration of unsolved slayings spanning the years from 1980 to 1999. Pick up your copy in print or ebook formats on Amazon, or download the audiobook version from audible.com, and get ready for a chilling journey through modern crime history. All right, we're back. Hopefully, I think little baby Cookie moved from underneath. She was sitting underneath the tripod of the camera, so I was gonna say that I said she was sitting in the middle, like in the cone of power.
Yeah.
She's like some new age kind of shit where she was trying to get like some
She's rolling around at my
energy
feet.
from the
I put my
cosmos.
shoe down there because she usually bites on the shoe, and she was like, "Fuck that shoe." She looked at me mad, dude. Just like
She was like, I am
"Why
not
do
in
you
the
put
mood
your
for that
fucking
right
shoe?"
now. I
Yeah,
just
she-
don't
yeah.
like it.
She
But
was
she
mad.
loves shoes and she loves feet.
Yeah, she was like, "I'm not in that mood for that shoe. I'm not in the mood for that shoe."
Because normally she will come after the shoes and she's all into it. She's like,
Looked at me like, "Fuck you."
yeah, she's in a weird mood
Got
today.
very expressive face. She learned about facial expressions from us. I know she does. I know she did.
Well, we liked it, and I don't think we've said this on the show before, but the first day that we got, I think it was the first night that we
She
got
was
her.
like that big. She was. Like
She
a
was
little bit-
tiny. She was only, well, her eyes were still blue, so
Yeah.
she was less than 6 weeks old when we got
Yeah.
her, by just somebody that found her in their yard, presumably. And so she was a little skittish at first because, you know, we had Beijing and she was a big cat and everything, but it's like we took her in the bedroom and we put her on the bed and she was like sitting on the foot of the bed and we were like sitting at the head of the bed, and she like made eye contact. She looked
Yeah.
she looked at him, then she looked at me,
Yeah. Then we looked at
and
each
then
other.
we looked at each other.
And then she looked at it and she was like, "What? Yeah. It was the weirdest thing. I've never seen a cat do that.
Yeah, she was very like from the
Yeah.
beginning. She was very, very small, and from the very beginning, she was very kind of like, "Are you my mommy and daddy?"
Yeah. I didn't know what that deal was.
And then she was like, after that, she was like totally fine. She was like, "Oh, I guess
Yeah,
you're my
she'd
mommy
sleep
and
up-
daddy."
sleep
She just
up
came
in
and
bed.
slept in the bed the first night that we had her.
Yeah, you had to
I
be
was-
careful you wouldn't roll over on her
Because she was
just
very little.
constantly purring but from then on out, she mimicked everything that we did in terms of facial expressions and everything. It's like a little human child.
She is like a human child.
Yeah, and she sleeps on her back. She does things that humans do.
Yeah. She still sleeps in the bed
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
At least part of the night.
It's the weirdest thing. I've never seen a cat like that. Never.
I haven't either. She has like,
No.
and I'm sure other people will have cats like that, but it's like, I've never had one.
Very little cat-like quality to her. A lot more like a monkey or a human.
Yeah. She is very monkey-like.
It's a fucking trip. And she's got a good sense of humor.
She does, yeah.
Yeah.
And she has a little voice. Like, she has
Yeah.
little
Yells
talks and
and
little
talks and shit.
inflections and stuff
Yeah.
and, you know, shit like that. But, yeah. So, anyway, she left the room. I don't know where she went. She was mad at us
Yeah.
for some reason. Probably because I was recording her and she didn't like it. She doesn't
Yeah.
like to be recorded. So, okay. So, now that we're talking some more about some weirdness in ancient Roman, let's talk about something really cheerful. Mass infant graves. How about
Yeah,
that?
you were telling me about this. This is pretty weird.
Yeah, this is some weird shit right here.
I mean-
So there's more than one. So I'm going to talk about like two different sites. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is actually it's a seaport called Ashkelon. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. It's in Israel, on the Mediterranean coast. Now, a find was made here by an archaeologist with the somewhat unfortunate name of Ross Voss.
Okay.
We'll get into another archaeologist with an even with an even more unfortunate name later on when we're talking about the other site. But Ross Voss was exploring one of the ancient sewers in this city, because archaeology is a really glamorous profession, So while he was looking through the sewer, he finds a number of small bones. At first, he believes that these are chicken bones, and these are presumably the ruins of, ancient dinners or whatever. However, it was later discovered that the bones were actually human and were actually infant bones from the ancient Roman era. It ended up that this was the remains of more than 100 babies. So this is not the only one that's been found, and like I said, I'll go into another one later on, but this is actually the largest discovery of infant remains from this time period that has been found to date. So since he couldn't figure out, why all these baby skeletons were in one place and how they might have died, so he takes them to a forensic anthropologist. Now, the forensic anthropologist, whose name is Patrician Smith, notes that there didn't seem to be anything wrong with any of these babies. There were no signs of illness, no signs of disease. They all appeared to have been perfectly healthy at the time of their death, and they had all died before they were a week old.
So we're talking about pretty much newborns.
Newborns.
All right.
Now, it should be noted that during Roman times, it was not all that unusual for infants to be killed as a form of crude birth control.
Yeah.
What they would usually do is if a woman would have a baby and she felt like she didn't really want it, then they would do what they called exposure, where they would just kind of leave it someplace, and sometimes someone would find it and, adopt it and take care of it, but other times it would just lay out until it died. So it sounds terrible, but this was actually not illegal at the time because it was believed widely that infants were not really human until they were about 6 months old because they didn't have a soul until then or something.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they just weren't developed, and they thought back then that they didn't feel anything, they didn't feel any pain or any emotion or anything like that.
They probably figured they were animal-like. They couldn't talk. So
that's probably what it was.
Yeah, and that they wouldn't be able to remember anything, so it's not like you're dealing with a person.
So that's what they
they're
thought.
thinking.
So they thought
they weren't thinking in potentiality.
Yeah.
They were thinking in the way it was at that time.
Yeah. So they were just thinking it was like a little blob and it was kind of alive, but it didn't really have a soul. It wasn't a person.
It was just a very, very late term abortion.
That's essentially what this was. So so it wasn't actually illegal to just kind of I don't want this kid, and you just kind of leave it out in your yard or whatever.
Right.
So yeah. And in fact, as most people will know, the very famous story of the founding of Rome, the twins Romulus and Remus, were actually abandoned at birth and were raised by a she-wolf, and then went on to found Rome when they got older. Yeah. Whether that's true or not, I doubt it.
No, not true.
But that is that's the legend about the
pretty much everyone knows that's mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether those two guys were real guys or not, I'm not really sure. But the whole thing about them being raised by a wolf and stuff like that, nobody thinks that's the case.
I don't remember all the details, but I saw a thing where someone explained what the symbology of the story meant.
Yeah.
There was a symbolism to it that ancients understood a lot better than we did. Abandoned children being suckled by a wolf. I think one had to kill the other, didn't he?
I can't even remember how that story
Some weird
goes now.
shit like that. But there's a symbolic explanation for everything in that story. So it couldn't have been.
It's like I said. There have been cases, in history of kids raised by animals, but a lot of them are not.
Now, from what I remember, the intent of the story meant that the Romans were basically a people that were about fighting to the death for survival. That's what it was.
Which makes sense.
They were a wolf-like, predator-type people.
Yeah.
And if you know about the history of Rome, that's what you're talking about. Yeah, that's the way they were.
I mean, I could see how you would want, the founders of your city to be, these badass, they were babies, and it's they were left, but then this wolf came, so they were almost, half look like werewolves.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We do the same thing today, though. Eagles.
Yeah, true.
Eagles are things that fucking lords of the sky, big regal birds that swoop down and just fuck your ass up. You know what I mean? And then after they're done, they're just sitting up there looking pretty. That's an eagle. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny because I had seen eagles, bald eagles and stuff, flying in the sky every now and then, but it's you never get a sense of how big they are.
They're huge.
Until you see them. Because I saw one, when I was a teenager, I saw one, sitting there, and I was like, holy shit, that thing's fucking enormous.
When I was at the barn, man, I saw one of them come down out of the sky. I didn't actually see him, but I heard him hit. Boom! And I turned and looked, and he fucking dove on a pile of horse shit. And was sitting there with his legs going...
Like, I heard something in here.
Tearing through the shit, looking for something, but it wasn't there. And he left.
He's like, oh, well, I guess I didn't hear something.
Sounded like a damn fucking car impact.
They're very, very
Boom!
large. Very large.
Yeah, shit went
Same
flying.
thing happened with, like, pelicans. Like, I'd always see, like, I grew up in Daytona Beach. You know, I grew up, like, right on the Atlantic Ocean. So I saw pelicans, like, flying all the time. But one time I was fishing with my family and a pelican landed only, like, 3 feet away from me. And I'm like, holy shit, they were as big as me.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how fucking big they were.
Yeah.
And it's, you know.
Full-grown bald eagle, man, about 3 feet tall.
They're
It's
massive.
like the fucking size of a fucking... Like the size of a midget.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Like the size of a midget.
Yeah. I was thinking that fucker's pretty big.
Well,
Okay, it's not something you'd run up on.
No, definitely.
it's
Not
something
if
you'd
you're
run up.
smart, anyway.
Yeah. The talons looked huge. And he was just fucking tearing through that horse shit looking for whatever it was. I don't think there was anything in there.
Yeah.
I think for his experience told him that
sometimes
there were
mice
things,
and rats and
there
things
were
like
things
that
in
running
there,
around
right? Yeah, he dove.
He's
on
like,
it.
oh, that's a big pile of shit. Sometimes those
Yeah.
have prizes inside.
Yeah, yeah, it was horse shit.
I guess
Big
I'm
old-
not nowadays. I'm not like. I guess I'm not as impressed by how big the birds are because we have sandhill cranes everywhere, and those fucking things are gigantic dinosaur birds
Yeah, they try to get in the back door.
that try to get in the back door. Yeah, they'll knock.
They knocked to come in. I fed them. I made a mistake.
Well, that's why they tell you not to do that.
Yeah, because they just keep coming
For
back.
that exact reason.
And
Also,
somehow
they are
they-
super loud.
And they're very intelligent. And somehow they spread the word because it was more than one family that came asking for food.
That's why birds are not dumb, man.
Yeah, they're pretty smart.
You feed. That's why they tell you not to feed them around here because you feed one, it's like it
keep
goes and
coming
tells
back.
its friends with that really loud, annoying call that they
I
have.
took some video of that shit. Did you ever post it on the show?
I don't think it was in the show. I don't even remember what happened to that video because that was a while.
Okay.
I think I probably still have it somewhere.
Sandhill crane's big, man, almost 4 feet tall.
They're about 4 feet tall.
I feed them by hand. Certain select families.
Yeah, because it's always like a little family. It's like a little
Yeah.
mom and a dad, and then
If they've
one,
got
one
a
or two
baby,
babies.
if they've got a baby, I might feed them a little bit. You're not supposed to, but
Yeah,
I might
they
feed 'em.
specifically tell you not to. But like I
Right.
said, that's why because they can fly. I mean, they're
Yeah.
almost as big. I mean, they're big like an ostrich, but not quite as big as that. But they can fly, and they make a really loud noise. And also, if you feed them once, they will never forget your ass.
And then they'll knock on the door.
And then they will come to your house and like knock on your doors and
Yeah.
windows and stuff like that. Like, hey, bud, remember that time you fed us? We're back
And
again.
I'll look out and there's a damn sandhill
And they're
crane
looking
there.
at you like that.
And they're like,
hey, remember us?
Yeah.
Give me some more of that bread or granola or whatever it is that
Come
you
on
have.
out here and feed us.
Yeah, they do. It's
And
like,
that's probably what started those damn stories of that fucking monster. What's the name of that monster that flew out of the fucking sky?
oh, which one?
The one that they said that they saw standing on the side of the road.
Who, Mothman or
Mothman.
The Jersey Devil or something
Mothman
like that?
and Jersey Devil. I think Mothman is what I was thinking of.
I kind of suspect Mothman might have been. Because some people
Mothman-
said, oh, it's an owl and stuff. I'm like, maybe it was a
Nah.
crane because those
Yeah.
fuckers are
Mothman is
enormous.
Mothman was probably a fucking crane, a fucking sandhill crane.
Because they're very big. And they
Yeah.
can fly.
When you see one of them and you deal with one, you can understand how that might become Mothman. They are pretty intelligent, and they'll eat right out of your hand.
Yeah. Well, the ones around here will.
And make eye contact with you, and they do smart shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just funny. We see them around
they
here.
are man-like, if I guess.
Yeah, and like I said, they're
Yeah.
almost as tall as I am.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They're about 4 feet tall. Okay, so as I was saying, now they had found like graves of infants and stuff before, but obviously the infants in these other grave sites were more obviously where it was like a cemetery because there was a wider range of ages. It's like it looked like they had died of various diseases and stuff. Interestingly, though, it did not seem that any of the babies at this particular site in Ashkelon had died of exposure. It appeared that all of them had been intentionally murdered.
Yeah.
So what they were thinking, because the sewer where all of these babies were found was beneath what they believe was an ancient bathhouse, that perhaps these were babies that were born to, say, prostitutes or people who worked at the bathhouse and were abandoned, so the prostitutes could get back to prostituting or whatever it was they were doing.
Yeah, maybe.
But, there are some arguments against that too. But,
It's probably more like the fact that the women in that area knew that if you went to the bathhouse, you could have a baby down there and throw it down in the damn fucking sewer.
Yeah, maybe. Isn't that fucked up, though? It's like that's
They're
the
like,
place where you go.
Yeah, go down there, go have your baby throw that
That's
shit
the
down
baby
there.
dumping area.
It's like the baby dumping area. It's probably what they're
Fucking
talking
Rome.
about. Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't Rome, but
Well,
like the Roman Empire.
It wasn't illegal.
No, it wasn't. Because like I said, they
So-
didn't think that a baby was a person until it was about 6 months old.
Infanticide was common in fucking pretty much all cultures.
It was very common,
including, I think I told this before when I was in Korea. The things that fucking Katusa soldiers believed about fucking baby ghosts.
Yeah.
And the Japanese thought the same thing because they were doing that.
Yeah.
They were killing babies after birth. And of course, there's a certain amount of guilt with that. And deep down, they know that
that's bad.
That that's bad. So they were always paranoid that the ghosts of those children would fucking come back and haunt them.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is,
yeah,
I think that a lot of times they didn't do it out of a sense of like just being evil motherfuckers. They did it out of practicality.
They couldn't raise the kids.
Because it's like, one, if you were poor, you didn't know about birth control. I mean, they did have birth control methods, but it's like, they're not 100% effective even nowadays. So it's like, if you already had fucking 10 children and then you got pregnant again, and then it's like, what the fuck am I going to do? And, if they had taken like some kind of, drinking penny royalty or whatever, like trying to have an abortion, it's like, if that didn't work, then you would just have to dump it somewhere.
You can't get too sentimental about this, you know what I mean? Use it by today's standards. You know what I mean? You're talking about something that's a country that is a third world country by today's standards. That had limited resources and limited technology. Women would get pregnant. They just couldn't take care of those babies.
Yeah, I mean, once you had
these women didn't live long anyway.
True.
You know what I mean? I think that life expectancy was 30.
Yeah, on
so
average.
You're talking about teenage women, a lot of them probably.
Yeah.
And women in their 20s that maybe already had kids that they had to feed. The value of life back then was not what it is today.
Yeah.
They just didn't think that way. It was very practical, and they lived fast, and they died young.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like that's probably what was going on.
And they were doing this in basically a fucking third world country.
And I'm not saying that they didn't feel bad about it. Like I said, I mean, and obviously, particularly in, cultures where they have shit about baby ghosts and stuff like that, like in Korea and Japan and stuff like that. I mean, the fact that they even had, you all right?
Yeah.
The fact that they even had myths like that shows that they felt bad about it.
Yeah.
They were just doing it for practical reasons. It's like, look, we can't feed another one.
And
there's nothing else for them to do.
They didn't have a choice.
That's what I mean. It's like they were kind of like, they were kind of like pushed into a corner.
Yeah, and they weren't alone. A lot of people were doing that at that time.
Yeah.
It was just something that they all had to do. And you have to look at it in the context of the time. These people didn't live long.
Yeah.
This was...
Yeah.
Could you blame them? None of them lived long.
Back then, it's like shit that illnesses that we don't even think about nowadays. Like you would just kind of, shake it off. I mean, it killed people back then. Yeah. They didn't know anything about sanitation. They didn't know anything about antibiotics. They didn't know anything about that.
Right. There was no criminal justice system. There wasn't any kind of justice. You could be murdered, too. You know what I mean? Governments could change and massacres could happen. All kinds of fucking weird shit happened in that world. It was not stable.
That's what I mean. It's like it really doesn't sound like a fun time. Really
everything was temporary.
Yeah.
But you know what? You have to understand, if you look at the history of mankind, that was the normal state of things. The situation we're in now as modern people is not the norm.
Yeah.
The standards have been raised significantly. This is the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
well, yeah,
normal.
I mean, for most of human history.
For most of human history, this is the norm.
This is how most people have been living,
Right. So I always try to fucking make sure, because a lot of modern people, me growing up in different cultures, helps me, I think, try to keep all you motherfuckers in line. We are in a very privileged situation.
Oh, definitely.
The poorest of person today in the Western world, and even you're talking about India to a certain extent, in China, the poorest person is living better than a king did in this era.
Back in the old days.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we have improved substantially.
That was one of the funny
Yeah.
thing, and I think we mentioned this when we reviewed the Dracula BBC miniseries.
Yeah.
Where he did actually make a point when he came into the modern day of like coming into that woman's like kind of crappy house.
Yeah.
And he was like talking about how even like the richest, wealthiest nobleman
didn't have what
that woman had, and she was like, you know, lower class.
She's a low class woman, but she had refrigeration.
Yeah, she had a refrigerator, she had a TV.
A TV. She had fucking electronic things.
Yeah.
She lived fucking
running water
in a clean house,
an inside bathroom
with a damn vacuum cleaner, and you know what I mean, and the ability to get rid of garbage. You know what I mean? That's not the way the ancients lived.
I said, back in the when we talked about this on the Lizzie Borden show, it's like as wealthy as they were back then, they were still pooping in a bowl.
They shat in a bowl.
Pooping in a bowl and put it in a cabinet.
And they put it up in a cabinet. And then
Get rid of
they
that
shat
later.
in that fucking bowl until it was full. I guarantee you.
Well, yeah, because why would you want to, like, you'd want it to be all, like, full. It's kind of like, you know, when your dishwasher, you don't want to run it with just, like, 2 or 3 dishes in there. You want to wait till all of the dishes are in there, and then you run it.
How many of y'all have a bowl of shit in your house right now?
Be honest.
Even you poor, even you're poor as a motherfucker. Even if you're poor as fuck, all right. I guarantee you, you do not have a bowl of shit in your house.
Unless you're a hoarder.
There's got to be something wrong with you if you have a bowl of shit in your house.
Because remember, I've seen a couple episodes of hoarders where they didn't have a bowl where they were saving their shit, like they had jars of it or bags of it.
Yeah.
But that is very rightly considered a mental illness nowadays.
Yeah. But they did that back then.
So it just goes to show how much the norms have changed just in the past couple of centuries.
So even if you're a hood rat up in the hood, you are living like a fucking king.
Compared to back
the way
then.
it was.
Because, like,
yeah.
Life back then, I would not want to go back there. Not for any amount of money.
If I were to live in that era, I would either want to be a fucking nobleman, which I had a bunch of servants, and they kept the place spotlessly clean.
Well, yeah.
Or I'd rather be like Jeremiah motherfucking Johnson, living out
just like live out in the wilderness.
Live out in the wilderness.
Seems like it would be more sanitary.
A lot more sanitary. Too.
I would think.
Yeah, life of just clean living. You know.
Because even like noblemen, like if you lived in a house, like in a city. I mean, I guess if you lived in a manor house, it'd be okay, but it would still be full of rats. It would still be full of poop. It would still be like your food would be like full of flies and stuff like that, and maggots and whatnot. Yeah,
they've excavated old apartments from the Roman period, and the kitchen and the shitter was right next to each other, so they ate and shat in the same place.
Well, I think we mentioned before, they probably thought, oh, well, it's just convenient because you eat it. It goes in one end and then it comes out in, and you only have to go next door. And then...
Their thinking was not like ours. Okay. So,
which you would think, like I said, and I think I mentioned it before, it's like you would think that would be a very obvious thing. It's like, I really don't want to, like, don't shit where you eat. I mean, that seems like it would be really obvious. They centralized
all the fucking bodily functions into one area of the house. This is where you eat, you shit here too. It's all food. It's going in, it's going out.
Same
thing. But it don't matter if flies land on the shit and then lands on the food. That don't matter. You know, that's what they were thinking.
Yeah, it really didn't seem to occur to them, did it?
It's all smell.
That's another T-shirt. It's all smell.
Yeah.
I kind of want to make that shirt, but if somebody asked me to explain it, I'm not sure I'd be able to.
This smells good, and that smells good. They probably thought that shit smelled good.
Well, compared to like probably what they were eating back then, it probably did kind of all smell the same.
Man,
I don't know.
I saw Roman recipes, you know. Roman fast food was to take a mouse and fucking break its neck, dip it in damn olive oil, and swallow it whole. That was their version of fast food.
Like raw?
Raw. Yeah.
The fuck, Rome?
Well, they were just trying to get some protein. They ate bread, too. But,
oh, well, that makes it better.
Yeah, they didn't really have what we had. But
No
a
kidding.
street vendor might have a whole box, like in a bait box.
Yeah.
Filled with fucking live mice. Because mice are easy to breed.
Yeah.
Okay, and you could get mice anywhere out of any one of those damn... So what they would do is they'd sell you a live mouse, and you broke the neck, and you would dip the mouse into a cup of olive oil that you got from the same guy. And then you'd swallow that because the oil would help you swallow it. And then you would drink the oil down. And then you'd have little loaf of bread or a piece of bread. And you'd eat all that with the oil. They loved olive oil. And it might be flavored.
Well, I agree with olive oil. The olive oil is delicious.
But they would swallow a mouse whole.
Yeah.
With the fur on it and everything.
Can I say I love the idea of an ancient Roman food truck that's just all raw mice.
Yeah.
But you can have it like lots of different ways. Like you could have a dessert mouse where you could like dip it in dark chocolate. Yeah. And also you could have like a south of the border raw mouse where you could like dip it in chili powder.
The Romans had this stuff called garum. You know, it was, I'm calling it oil, but it was actually garum. And there's been some recipes of garum, you know, that have survived over time. It's kind of like flavored olive oil. It was olive oil with seasonings in it, and I think anchovies. So they thought it tasted great, but it doesn't. I remember reading that recipe and I was like, man, that just probably tastes terrible. So their concept of what tasted good was probably pretty fucked up.
As it also was in the 50s because they like put fucking pimentos and olives and jello together and everything had mayonnaise on it and
they had salt, but it was expensive. Only rich people could have salt.
Yeah.
They had a lot of little seasonings and stuff, but a lot of the stuff just involved garum, bread, and mice.
I think I'll just stick
That's
with the
what
bread
your average.
and oil. Thanks.
That was the hamburger of the day.
Yeah.
Damn mouse and some bread and some garum. Yeah.
Raw mouse.
Rich people probably didn't eat that though.
I would hope not.
They were eating like elephant vag. They had that shit. Yeah.
That's another Roman food truck. The elephant veg truck.
Elephant vag. They would. The fucking rich Romans would fucking. Because, you know, we have all kinds of lists of shit that was ordered for parties and stuff, you know, what rich people had. And historians recorded what they would fucking serve a whole elephant, you know, something that came out of the damn
That's pretty
arena.
impressive, I have to admit.
Yeah. And elephant vag, and they liked sexual organs. Evidently. I mean, this, you know, who knows how much of this is true?
Now I kind of wonder if it was like some ancient Roman writer like trolling everybody. Yeah, he's like in 2,000 years they're gonna think they really ate this.
They were everything was about opulence.
Yeah,
opulence, you know. And I guess elephant vag was some fucking opulent shit.
It could be delicious for all I know. I doubt it. People still eat they eat like, you know, mountain oysters and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't, but some people do.
Steamed elephant vag. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Elephant vag.
That was one of the ones I remember. I mean, a long time ago.
Well, I can see why that would be the thing that you would remember. That's pretty much just,
that was something.
Elephant cooch for you.
Yeah, that was something an emperor served and shit. They were eating whole elephants.
I want to go back in time just for 5 minutes to be at that party.
One of them was a huge cooked elephant, and it was standing up, and they rolled it in standing up. You know what I mean? And then the party.
Like I said, that actually kind of impresses me.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because elephants are big, yo.
Yeah, it rolled it in. It was standing up, and it was cooked and ready to go.
What did they cook it in?
Didn't say.
I was gonna say, did they build an oven big enough to cook a whole fucking elephant? That's amazing.
I can't remember. I think it might have been Suetonius. I don't remember who it was that wrote about that.
That bitch made that up.
It was things that emperors.
Maybe it was a baby elephant.
It evidently was stuff that was coming out of the Colosseum.
Okay.
Because they would have animal hunts in the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And I want to know whether or not they were fucking actually eat any of those fucking gladiators that were being killed. It makes me wonder what
it wouldn't surprise me.
Did they serve human flesh as a delicacy?
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. I was just watching a thing today where it said that they had actually found a couple of skeletons and stuff like that of female gladiators.
No, that was talked about. That was talked about in Roman history.
Yeah.
That later on became kind of like a fucking I would say I guess you say like a delicacy to go and watch women fight each other.
Yeah.
And it was like wrestling and regular gladiatorial combat.
Yeah, it was like glow.
Yeah.
Gorgeous
Now-
ladies of wrestling, except to be gorgeous ladies of gladiator.
Now, there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of misconceptions about gladiatorial combat. There were different kinds of gladiators. Some of them were just prisoners.
Yeah.
You know, and they were there to reenact battles. They were there to die. Okay, because certain people had to die for these battles. But your average, real expensive professional gladiator, for the most part, didn't fight to the death. They were too expensive.
I was gonna say they were like big draws for crowds. I would imagine.
There were certain emperors that started to come back on the scene, going, "Up, that's it. We got to have death matches."
Yeah.
Because it had been a long time since somebody had actually been killed in gladiatorial combat, and you know what I mean. They were taking the spice out of it. They became kind of like...
yeah, because everyone's just kind of like, lame. They didn't even die this time.
Yeah,
God
so
damn
it was
it.
becoming kind of like professional boxing. Where they were going out there fighting, and the guy would have a victory, but he didn't actually kill the other guy.
Because even nowadays, I kind of feel like a lot of the reason that people watch stuff like NASCAR and stuff, even if they want to admit it, is to watch some shit crash.
Yeah.
And maybe someone will die.
Yeah. Well, it was like that.
I don't think they want people to die. I'm just saying they'd be kind of like jazzed if it happened.
But they had certain emperors that would come back and try to bring back the good old days, and part of bringing back the good old days was like saying
fight to the death.
A certain amount of dudes have to die in these gladiatorial games. And, you know...
Ticket sales are down, people. We really need to, like...
Yeah.
Now, creepily, this mass baby grave that was found in Ashkelon is not the only such mass grave that has been found in what was once the Roman world. There's also a place in England called Hambledon, which is in Buckinghamshire County. Now, in 1912, there was an archaeologist with yet another unfortunate name. His name was Alfred Cox, and it's Cox spelled like Cox, not like COX. So, you know what I mean?
They were raising roosters.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So poor Alfred Cox, which is worse than Ross Voss, I have to say. He actually found, he was leading an excavation in Hambledon, which was the site of a former Roman villa, and found the remains of 103 individuals, 97 of whom were babies. 3 of them were kids and 3 were adults.
Damn.
Now, the same thing applied, because like I said, they had found other cemeteries before, other mass graves before, but there had been like a wider range in ages. Just like in Ashkelon, this also appeared that the babies had all been killed within the first week of life, and that they had been otherwise healthy, so that they had been killed for some reason, like, unknown to them. Now, there had been speculation that maybe, because there was kind of a Roman thing, and this is kind of a common thing in a lot of other cultures at the time too, that, you know, maybe they're all female babies, or most of them were female babies, because a lot of times, you know, there was kind of a thing where it's like, oh, the females were not as valuable as the males, and so they would kill them. Like China. Yeah, it would be something like that. I mean, they've even found letters like from the 1st century BCE where, you know, a husband is saying to his pregnant wife, you know, if it's a boy, keep it. If it's a girl, discard it or throw it out. Yeah. However, when they did DNA testing on several of these bodies, it was found that actually, now they couldn't get DNA out of all of them because obviously they're very old, but the ones that they tested were actually, there were some females, but they were more male than female. So, but they were all, like I said, they were all about a week old or less than a week old. Now, the weird thing about it is that at the Ashkelon site, they're kind of going on the presumption that, well, maybe this was a brothel, and maybe these were the babies of prostitutes, and, you know, things like that, and they just, you know, couldn't have them around or whatever. But then again, like some other researchers have said, you know, prostitutes, even in ancient times, were very good at, you know, avoiding getting pregnant, or they had ways to abort fetuses if they did get pregnant, and they were very good at that. So how would they have just been so lax as to like have all of these babies? Like, because they presume, particularly at the Ashkelon site in Israel, it seems like the babies were like thrown down the sewer drain. You know what I mean? Like when they were a particular age. So they're not entirely sure why these babies were discarded in this fashion. even though they're pretty sure that the Ashkelon site was a brothel, but they're not entirely sure that that's why the babies were there or why the babies were discarded. The other site in England, I don't think it was related to a brothel in any way, so they're not really sure what this mass grave might entail. Like you said, is this just some kind of like baby dumping ground? Like this is where everybody dumped their babies that they didn't want? Because there really doesn't seem to be any particular reason why like they were all left in this one particular spot.
I have a feeling that's probably all it was.
I mean,
and there was probably lots of these places. These are just the
maybe
ones.
these are just the ones that they found. Now they have found another one. They found one in Thailand from the same era, and they found one somewhere else too that was from the same era also.
I'm sure every little city kind of had a. This is where the babies go.
Yeah, like that's
Site,
where you put them. Like if you don't want them.
Well, just like when you're a teenager, everybody knows where you go park.
Yeah, maybe isn't that fucked up? But it's like everybody knew that's where the makeout spot, and that's where you dump the babies you don't want.
That's right. Yeah, that's probably all it is.
The site in England though is interesting because they think from the way that the graves are kind of situated that it looked like the babies were dumped like in secret, which kind of goes along with what we're saying, that it's like that was people going in the middle of the night and dumping the baby.
Throwing that shit there
and like leaving it in there.
Yeah.
I guess it's like the modern equivalent of like, you remember like back in the day, probably like back in the early 20th century up till maybe about the 50s, when it was like really looked down upon to be like an unmarried woman with a baby. Yeah. So especially if you were a teenager, so like some teenage girls would like hide the pregnancy and then they would just go and give birth somewhere and just like leave the baby in a dumpster or something. So maybe this is kind of a case like that, only on a massive scale. Yeah. I kind of feel like that might be what's going on.
And so then there's kind of like a girl underground about where to go do this.
Yeah, like where
they all know.
Because in Ashkelon, it appears that they were all dumped down, because it was a sewer where they found all of them. So there was like a drain above it, presumably. And they think they just like threw them down.
And it's probably easy to lift up the fucking lid to the drain. So that was where they were throwing them.
God, can you imagine?
Yeah, I can imagine it.
I can too. That's what's horrible about it. Yeah. Like I said, it's fucked up thinking about it. And it's like, you can understand why they did it. And it's like I said, it was a pretty common practice. And I don't think...
It's probably, like you said, it's probably teenage girls that were getting pregnant out of wedlock.
Yeah.
So they just laid low, had the kid, threw it down in that drain, then went back to doing their normal life.
They were doing.
Something like that, yeah.
Because I feel like that kind of happened. I mean, I know that even happened.
People are people. They haven't changed much.
Yeah. I think that even happened, like, even up until fairly recently in, like, countries where abortion was illegal, like Ireland.
You got it going on here, man. You got girls giving fucking birth in the damn bathroom stall at the fucking prom and throwing the shit in the damn fucking wastebasket next to the fucking toilet.
That's what I mean. There are a few
cases.
What
they're talking about.
I mean, there are a few cases of that. Yeah. Like I said, it's probably just like that. Like, nowadays, it seems like it's a thankfully... it's pretty isolated incidents, but back then it was probably like a lot more widespread.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it was probably like peasant families and they were just like, oh, here's another one. We can't afford that.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's not married yet, and if she has a kid, she'll never get married, so she's going to throw that one away.
Yeah. Never had it.
And the dude that did it, he's a loser. But she's not sure which one it was.
Yeah.
Because she's fucking not, she's getting knocked down by 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
But it was something like that. It was something very fucking human and very fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
It's just, I think the thing that freaks people out about it is that it was just one area where it seemed like that was the place that you went to do that.
Man, it was in the girl underground.
Yeah. Like
they were all telling each other.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Speaking of girl undergrounds, kind of. Let's talk about Locusta the Poisoner. Or Locusta.
Okay.
So... I kind of love this. So, as I said, now I don't know if she was technically the world's first serial killer. I kind of doubt it. But sometimes she is called the first serial killer, at least the first female serial killer. Although I guess a more apt title would be an assassin, but I guess what makes her a serial killer is that she seemed to like be into it. Like she seemed to enjoy it and she would do it even if she wasn't hired to. So I guess that kind of makes her a serial killer. So, they don't actually know much about her early life. She's called Locusta of Gaul, so they figured that she was probably from Gaul. They think she probably came from a peasant family. From what they call the dark side of the Alps, in what is present-day France. Now, it wasn't that uncommon for a lot of villages back then to have because they didn't have doctors and shit like that, really, particularly in smaller villages. So you'd have a wise woman who knew about all the herbs and whatnot, and like what was good for you, and what was bad for you, and stuff like that. So they figured that Locusta had probably learned about various herbs and also poisons from her barbarian ancestors. So no one knows quite how, but she ended up in Rome by the middle of the 1st century CE. And she was apparently so knowledgeable about poisons and was really into it. Like, she seemed like that fucking... Remember that dude that we did the show about? Like, Graham Young? Like, that's all he cared about was, like, reading about poisons and, like, what they did. And he would, like, do it to people and shit. She seemed a little bit like that. Right. This seemed like her kind of whole reason for being, and she was, like, super, super good at it. So she had, like, all of these recipes and stuff like that. And she was apparently the best one. And her reputation kind of grew out of that. So, so she, ended up, I mean, she was super serious about this. She had all different kind of recipes. She had created all these different kind of poisons, and she knew what they did, and like, how you could hide them from various things and stuff. So she even took to testing all of her stuff on animals, probably on relatives too, I don't really know, allegedly, to make sure that they worked, and she had like extensive notes about what worked and what didn't. So the fact that she was so good at this, her name eventually ended up getting around, and she ended up getting like a lot of kind of wealthy clientele who wanted someone bumped off in kind of a low-key, plausible deniability kind of fashion. So, so she had all kind of like wealthy clients. Now, she did actually end up getting arrested a couple of times for murder. However, because she had so many wealthy and influential clients, somebody always managed to pay her bail and get her out of there. You know what I mean? So, So 54 CE. Locusta is contacted by the very famous Empress Julia Agrippina, who was the wife and also the niece of Emperor Claudius. Claudius had a son and heir from his previous marriage to a woman named Messalina. But Agrippina had her own son, Nero. And she wanted Nero to be the emperor. But it seemed like there was shit in the way. Claudius was in the way, and also Claudius's son, Britannicus, who was at this point only 13 years old, was also in the way. So Agrippina decides, I'm gonna hire this poisoner woman to bump these bitches off. Because that's what you did. If you were like back in the fucking, that's what I was saying before. She seemed like it was, technically it was not legal, but it was just, it was almost kind of like accepted. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. Murder was illegal.
Yeah.
But to prove murder, I mean, it was almost nearly impossible by those days. They didn't have fucking any kind of forensics. Also, the Roman trial system and their legal system was very different than what you'd have today. It was like a public forum.
Yeah.
And you'd have a prosecutor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who would sit there and fucking say, yeah, we think this person did it. And then you'd have a fucking a defense attorney. I think it was called a secutor, I think is what it was. Somebody who fought for you. I mean, the people in the audience could probably fucking chime in if they know the difference. I mean, this is unscripted. It's all from memory. Basically, they had an argument over whether or not you did it or not.
Yeah.
And then there was a fucking huge mass of random motherfuckers, you know what I mean, who were totally fucking, you know what I mean, totally uneducated and totally unfit to be a juror. Okay?
It's just a big rabble.
They would just kind of fucking, it was kind of like and they would all vote whether or not they thought you were guilty or not. It was kind of like a popularity contest.
I could see that, yeah.
If you had good charisma all right, you could get off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Easily.
It's like, look how awesome I
Yeah,
am.
but on the other hand, you could be innocent and fucking be found guilty.
If you were ugly,
if you were ugly or some shit
hunchbacked
like
or
that, yeah,
something.
or if they just didn't like you.
Yeah, I could see
So
that.
it wasn't.
I feel like that happens a little bit nowadays too. But
Yeah,
it's like,
it
was probably
is.
much worse back
It
then.
was worse back then.
Ugly people are always
no.
like considered
Yeah,
not as trustworthy.
The quote justice system unquote is always going to be fucked up no matter what time period you're talking about.
Well, because it's humans and humans are imperfect.
And there's corruption involved too.
That's what I mean. That kind of goes along with humans.
If you come from a powerful family and you have money, then fucking that helps a lot. Look, y'all motherfuckers need to understand. Just look at the damn Epstein case. If you are rich and powerful and you can afford powerful attorneys and you got dirt on fucking powerful men, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can be found guilty. And you can get out of prison. All right. Now, eventually they got his ass. They killed him. Everybody knows that man didn't kill himself. He had too much dirt on people and he was going to fucking roll over. And this is a show we can talk about it. You know what I mean? And the algorithms aren't going to hear me. They're not going to understand what I'm talking about, but you understand what I'm talking about. Okay. Because the AI algorithms are listening. All right. They are. All right. But no, if you're the right person, you can get away with anything.
Well, look at Locusta here.
Yeah.
She poisoned a couple of people and got away with it because she had rich friends and clients and stuff like that who got her off.
Yeah.
Even though everyone kind of knew she did it.
Yeah. And that's evidently pretty
She was
much,
known for the shit. She was known for being a poisoner.
and that was kind of the standard in the Roman era. And if you were a patrician, especially, okay, Rome had a class system. The royal people were called, the royal class were called the patricians. The military class were the equestrians. Everybody else were just citizens. And then most of Rome were not citizens, really. The citizens were people that were born in Rome over a certain amount of generations, or they were fucking veterans. They could vote. But if you were a wealthy patrician, you were pretty much above the law. If you were a fucking powerful equestrian, you were pretty much above the law. As long as you weren't fucking over other equestrians and other patricians, you were going to be all right. And they mostly didn't mess with their own.
Well, I feel like then as now, the law is kind of for the peasants.
Exactly. It's to keep you fucking peasants under goddamn control.
Yeah, to keep you from fucking with the rich people.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're for.
Yeah.
So, all right. So Agrippina has hired Locusta to do her magic and get rid of Emperor Claudius, who was her husband as well as her uncle, as I said. However, Claudius, as well as a lot of Roman emperors at this time, weren't dummies, and they knew that everyone was getting poisoned left and right, so a lot of them employed food tasters, bodyguards, things like that. Claudius actually had a bodyguard. He also had 2 food tasters. However, he was also a big fan of mushrooms. God damn it, he loved him some mushrooms.
I love me some mushrooms, too.
I do as well.
Yeah.
It's weird because I didn't like them when I was a kid, but now I just can't get enough of the shit. They're really, really good.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking when I was a kid. I was really
Make
picky
some
eater.
kind of mushroom dish.
We should, actually. Get some of them big old mushroom caps and big old
Yeah.
portobello shit.
Yeah.
I used to really like those portobello, like, here we go talking about food again.
Stuffed
Those big
mushrooms.
big old portobello panini.
Take some mushrooms and stuff them bitches with fucking crab and cheese.
Oh, god damn. That does sound good.
Be nice. Okay, go
Maybe
ahead.
we should go to the store tomorrow and do that.
We'll do that. All right.
So, okay. So what the plan was, what Locusta did first, because like I said, she was no slouch herself. She had like a whole plan laid out. And apparently Agrippina gave her a shit ton of money to work this out. So she made a poison for the bodyguard, not to kill him, but to just like make him sick enough that he wouldn't come to work that day. Like it gave him like really raging shits or something like that. So then she gave the food tasters a shit ton of money. Like she bribed them. It's like, hey, how about you not show up to work today? Here's a whole bin. They were like, okay, can do. So Agrippina then buys Claudius a big old bag of mushrooms, which had a bunch of poison on them that Locusta had cooked up. So like a dummy, he ate them and then immediately started having really terrible stomach pains. So Agrippina pretends that she's all concerned and everything. She's like, oh my gosh, are you sick? Is it something you ate? Here, have a feather so you can throw it up. However, the feather had been coated by Locusta with strychnine.
Damn.
So see, she doesn't miss a fucking trick.
Double dosing him.
She doesn't miss a fucking trick. Wait till you get to the other shit. She's like, she thought of everything. So he takes the feather and like tried to use it to throw up. However, it had strychnine on it, so it fucking killed him. So Britannicus, who was Claudius's son, was still only 13 years old. And at this point, since Agrippina had tricked Claudius into naming Nero the heir, Nero subsequently became crowned emperor, and you guys know how well that worked out. However, shortly after this happened, Agrippina acted like a total bitch, and because she didn't want to get busted, because people were suspecting, they're like, hey, you had Claudius bumped off, like, to get Nero to be emperor, we know. So what she did was she threw Locusta under the bus. She basically said, that bitch did it. I didn't have anything to do with it. I'm just over here completely innocent, you know? I just tried to help him, whatever. So she gets, so Locusta gets thrown in jail and is going to be executed. However, while waiting for her execution, she gets sprung out of jail by Nero himself. Because Nero apparently had gotten sick of his mom's shit.
Yeah, so he killed most of his family.
And he was kind of a shithead.
Yeah.
As you know. So he had gotten sick of his mom's shit, so he decided to bust Locusta out of jail. And he was kind of afraid, too, that when Britannicus got to be of age, that he would challenge him for the throne. So he was like, all right, well, we have to get rid of Britannicus, who, like I said, remember, is a 13-year-old kid. So Locusta gets out of jail in 55 CE, and she was given not only a general pardon for all crimes she had committed in the past, but also apparently for all crimes she would subsequently commit in the future.
Oh, shit. So
she had carte blanche.
That means that she could
I mean, it didn't work out that way, but it's like, that's what
crimes in the future.
That's what Nero told her.
Yeah.
He also gave her a shit ton of money and a whole bunch of land.
Yeah, okay.
And he named her the official poisoner of the fucking... So you see how in the open this
now,
shit
was this confirmed? Is this confirmed, or is this...
It's in several sources.
It's in several sources?
It's in several sources.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff about Nero. You know what I mean?
There is, like, the whole thing about him fiddling while Rome burned. That's not true.
Really true.
That's not true. But it's like,
I think Nero was a lot better emperor than a lot of people think. He killed his own family members, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
They kind of all did that back then, too.
Yeah, they kind of all, because for all we know, they were bad. Maybe they had to go.
Yeah.
Because these are almost like mafia families.
Yeah.
So you have to work. You have to consider. You know what I mean? Was Nero the better choice? He definitely was into the arts, and some people said that he'd get out there and fucking play the lyre and perform. And now by some accounts they said he was great. Other accounts said that he sucked and they got bored, or falling asleep.
I kind of would believe that, because probably the people that said he was great were like afraid he was going to do something to them, and they were probably like, the rest of them were just kind of like, oh god, here we go.
You don't know. It was
you
don't know. It's probably just partisan shit, like today with Trump. You know what I mean? Some people say he's good. Some people would say he's bad, just depending on what side of the fence you were. It's difficult to say. How he died was pretty fucking wild. You know what I mean? He did fucking order his slave to kill him because they were fucking coming after him, and they did bury all the complexes that he made, his palace, and it was ended up they found that palace later, and they found a lot of cool statues and shit that he had made. In his day, after he was dead, I mean, you know what I mean, the fucking Roman people didn't like him.
No, they really did not.
But it's just very difficult to say. We don't know.
Well, like I said, we weren't there. But like I said, it seems like most of the sources that have come down, even contemporary sources, they hated his guts with a passion.
Yeah, although I think Caligula was probably worse.
And I think most people would agree with it. Well, Caligula, I think, was straight up crazy.
Yeah, I think he had problems.
I think he definitely had some mental health issues.
He had problems. But a lot of the Roman emperors were kind of like that. There was always one faction that said he was awesome, and then another faction that said no, the motherfucker was garbage. So you had partisanship.
Yeah.
In Rome, you had the reds and the whites, and I don't remember what else they were called. They had two different political parties.
Yeah.
The demagogues and the fucking optimums, I think is what they were called. In other words, the best people and the demagogues.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Republicans and Democrats. And the history that we have is basically tabloid history. We'll never fucking know. We weren't there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's kind
and
of
Romans
hard
were
to...
great at fucking rhetoric and lying. So we just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't know.
So, all right. So Nero, like I said, has let Locusta out of prison and has given her all these pardons and stuff and given her all this money and land. And he's like, okay, now kill this 13-year-old kid, Britannicus, who might, usurp me on the throne one day. Now, apparently, the first poison that Locusta tried on him wasn't strong enough. He got really sick, but he didn't die. This apparently pissed Nero off so much that he beat the shit out of Locusta with his own hands, many sources say. So the next one, because he was like, yeah, you better get it right next time and actually kill the fucking kid. So she tries again, and this time... Listen to this shit. Okay, so apparently the Romans, and even though Britannicus was only 13 years old, everybody drank wine, even the 13-year-old kids. However, the Romans tended to drink their wine mixed with water.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something. Let me back this up a little bit. Nowadays, if you were to fucking mix water with your wine or put ice in your wine, you are. Yeah,
people would look at you like...
You were like, what the fuck are you doing? But Romans did that as a matter of fact. If you were rich enough to have ice, you put ice in your wine. Mm-hmm. You watered that wine down. Okay, that was what they did.
Yeah, it was very common.
Very super common. There wasn't all this stuff about aging wine. This wine is fucking 20 years old, 100 years old. But they didn't do that back then. Wine was just like a cheap fix. It was kind of like a soft drink. And if you mix and to drink it straight meant you were a low class motherfucker.
Yeah.
To drink that shit straight. You were supposed to water it down.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to be eating eels, too. Rich people ate eels. They had little gardens back there with like a fake pool. And on the outside of the pool, they had amphora in there. And they'd let eels go and breed eels out in the backyard. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, eels were very common, even in Victorian England. They ate eels a lot
because they breed fast, and they liked that meat.
I've never eaten one.
I've eaten it.
I imagine they probably. What do they taste like? They just taste fishy, like seafood.
It's like fish, but it has no fish flavor. It's almost kind of like closer to snake.
Oh, okay.
All right, so very light, flaky.
So it's almost kind of like chickeny, more on the chickeny.
No, almost no flavor. Light, flaky, almost like egg white.
Oh, okay.
Like an egg white is what it tastes like, and it's just protein. I had it in it's called unagi.
Yeah.
In on top of sushi.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, they love that shit. And
yeah, I feel like that was a really common food because, like you said, you could breed them really quickly, and you didn't need a lot of room.
Nah,
they were very common.
They just breed them in a pool back there, and evidently one of these nobles got into some really big shit because he was fucking punishing one of his slaves and threw the slave in the damn eel pit in eel and lamprey, and the lamprey came out and got him, and evidently ate his ass up.
Just his ass or all of him?
Ate all his ass up.
That was a big lamprey.
that story went up to the emperor, and he was like, "How dare you? Do not mistreat these slaves. This is a fucking disrespectful." Blah 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 blah. That guy got punished. I don't know if the fucking guy if the guy died from being... They were eating lamprey.
I don't imagine those probably taste very good.
Well, that's a kind of an eel.
I guess so.
They liked lamprey. It's a parasitical one.
That's kind of what makes me think it probably wouldn't taste very good.
But they ate eel and lamprey.
Yeah.
Fucking weird. They're Romans, though. You know?
Like I said, eel doesn't seem all that weird to me because a lot of cultures still eat that now. And like I said, they ate a lot of them in like Victorian England and stuff. So that doesn't seem so weird.
Well, they grow so easily. I mean,
that's what I mean.
There were eels actually living in the water system. In the United States.
Everywhere.
They were everywhere.
Shit was everywhere.
It's like eating a cockroach. Like, let's eat these goddamn roaches. They're here.
They're all over the place. Might as well.
In Thailand, they do that. You know what
Well,
I mean?
like you said, they're there.
But I wouldn't eat that shit. But in fucking...
Well, we eat shrimp, and those are like the roaches of the sea.
yeah, but shrimp was gorgeous, man.
I know, shrimp is really
remember,
good.
Remember when me and you had that shrimp fest?
Yeah.
Fuck, when this storm was coming over at Sam's, the fucking price of fucking shrimp, and these were the big ass fucking
Yeah,
shrimp.
we thought that hurricane was going to hit, and
Yeah.
Sam's was selling everything
They
off.
were,
They thought
Sam's
their power
was selling
gonna
off
go
all their
off.
fucking shrimp. We went down there, we got fucking 3 5
We got like
pound
we
bags.
got like 15 pounds of the
15
shitter.
pounds of fucking shrimp. And I cooked that shit up with fucking
Big
corn
old
on the
pot.
cob and fucking and white potatoes.
Yeah.
I had all that fucking spice in there with fucking what kind of stuff? It was Old Bay
Old Bay.
seasoning. Yeah, Old Bay seasoning. Boiled that shit up. We got sick of shrimp. We were eating so many shrimp. We got sick
I
of
never get sick of shrimp. I could eat that every day of my
Talk
life.
about a protein infusion. It's pure protein.
It was really good, though.
I must
We ate on that for like a week and a half, I think.
built up massive muscle. Shrimp muscle.
Shrimp muscle.
Shrimp muscle. We gotta fucking tear that shrimp up again.
Yeah, we'll do it. It's been a while since we did it
Yeah,
last time.
we're gonna go on a shrimp binge.
Since you said shrimp muscle, I just thought of like a little shrimp in the water with like big old like muscular arms.
We're gonna go on a shrimp.
There's another
binge.
T-shirt, shrimp muscle.
We're gonna go on a shrimp. we haven't fucked up shrimp lately, and we haven't fucked up crab lately.
Yeah, that's true.
King crab legs.
I know, I love those.
That's been about a year since we fucked those crabs up.
I love those, but it's like they're such hard work, man.
You gotta work for that meat.
You really do.
Yeah,
It's like you gotta crack that shit open.
gotta work for that meat.
And you don't. It's like you buy the big bag and it's like $30 or something like that. Then you feel like you don't get
You didn't get
because
enough
most
meat
of the weight is in the
in the shell.
shell.
That one time we went down to Winn-Dixie and fucking that girl hooked us up behind the counter. Remember that? She's like, here, take this.
Yeah, that's
Remember
right.
that shit? She waited up.
We
and
got a
she,
bunch of
She
extra.
liked us. She's like, guys, take this too. And she gave us like fucking twice extra.
Yeah,
And we had a lot.
we did. It was very good.
Yeah, she's like, take these little pieces. I'm like, whoa, all
No one
right.
will use these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Give
could,
us
eat,
like an
I could
extra-
eat seafood every day. I love fucking seafood.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as we were saying, yeah, the high class Romans used to water down their wine.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Locusta knew this. She also knew that the food tasters who checked for poison, that was their job, would have tested the wine. So what she ended up doing was that, okay, so Britannicus drank some of his wine and said that the water in it was too hot, or that the wine was too hot. So he wanted some more water put in it to like cool it off. Now Locusta had figured out that this would happen, so she poisoned the water because she knew that the food tasters would not be testing the water. They only tested the wine. So Britannicus drinks the wine with the poisoned water in it and starts convulsing right at the table. Now, Britannicus had epilepsy, which everyone knew. So when he started convulsing, both Nero said, "Oh, it's just an epileptic fit. Don't worry about it. It's like he'll be fine in a little while." So he just takes him in the other room, and no one does anything about it because they think he's just having another epileptic seizure. And so they're all just like sitting there watching it. I also saw one source that said like if the kid did die this time around. I also saw one documentary that said that apparently the kind of poison that Locusta used would have left like a really strange color on like the boy's skin, like on his face and stuff. Like it would either turn it like a bluish or reddish, like unnaturally. So apparently the kid was buried like super quick, like before anyone could see him, like only the servants saw him. But they dusted his face with chalk so like no one would notice that his skin was a weird color, so they wouldn't suspect. So after this happened, Nero gave Locusta a big estate. Like I said, she was named the Imperial Poisoner. He even allowed her to open, I love this, open a school for poisoners.
Damn.
Openly. She ran a school where she trained other people how to poison people.
Is this real or is it?
Apparently.
Okay.
Apparently. Like
Maybe-
a lot of writers wrote about this.
Maybe that was legal back then.
So like that's what I'm saying. It's like it wasn't a secret.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Locusta ran a school where she
Yeah.
trained like a couple other like kind of famous female poisoners that came along a little bit later. So she was just teaching other people how to make the shit. I guess I guess you could do that because you could maintain plausible deniability. You could kind of say, oh, she's just an herbalist.
Right.
Yeah, she's making poisons, but maybe she's also making medicines too. So it's kind of like, maybe it was like that type of thing. So you could kind of be like, you know what I mean? Like I was listening to this one podcast where they were talking about her and they were saying like, maybe it was like a head shop where it's like you kind of came in and like if you wanted the illegal shit, you had to like use the code word and they take you behind a beaded curtain and then here's the poison and stuff. So maybe it was something like that. But she did actually open a school and she trained other people how to make poison.
Well, like I said before, Rome did not have a very intricate legal system.
Yeah.
To murder somebody would have been illegal in Rome. But maybe to sell poison wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Or maybe to sell poison would have been legal, but to train people to poison others wouldn't have been.
Right, like you said, maybe it was a loophole.
So there was a bunch of loopholes, most likely. So it's
and the fact
like
that Nero was endorsing her and he was the emperor, like, I don't really think anybody could do anything about that.
Yeah, and the Romans were also interested in, they loved sensationalism. You know what I mean? They liked that kind of shit. So it could be that, yeah, this is some fucking bad shit. You know what I mean? It's not really all that moral. I mean, it's about poisoning things, but it is kind of cool. You know what I mean? It's technically not against the law.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and ride with this. All right. It'll make a lot of money.
Yeah.
People will come in and out of the door a lot, and we'll train all these people on how to poison anything. That's not the same as killing somebody.
Yeah.
Training them in it, is it?
That's what I mean.
It's like a martial arts.
You're just
It's like a martial arts dojo.
Maybe that's how they saw it.
You know what I mean? You're sitting there, you're practicing kung fu. You're not hitting anybody, though.
Yeah.
So it's probably something along that line.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it was just kind of thing. It's like, well, I'm just teaching people how to mix
how it's
chemicals,
done, but we're not doing it.
But we're not killing anybody.
Right, yeah.
Technically.
That's probably what it is.
So she apparently ran a very successful, had shit tons of money, very successful business, and was apparently hired by many other clients. Might have offed some other people for Nero later on too. However, in 68 CE, famously, everyone got sick of Nero's shit, and he was condemned to death by the Senate.
Yeah, then he went on a run.
Yeah. Now, apparently, Locusta had made him a poison suicide kit that he carried with him most of the time. However, when he actually went on the run the last time, he didn't have it with him, so ended up having to like stab himself or
he had a slave
have one of his slaves stab him. Sure. So after Nero died,
and then evidently he said, you know, today a great artist dies in me. Some shit like that. He
did say something like that. There was like a famous
quote to where.
How douchey can you get, dude?
Because he thought himself as a rock star.
Woe is me. Oh,
and today
the world is going to miss me so much.
Today a great artist dies.
Awesomeness is gone.
I kind of think he was kind of like you know who who reminds me of him? The fucking Prime Minister of Canada with Trudeau. The guy who does all the fucking costumes and shit. You know what I mean? He cosplays. He was a guy like that, I think.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So
although I think Nero, because I remember hearing some historians that fucking looked deep into the record and said that probably what we think of or what we know of Nero is probably not totally accurate, because they said that they did see a bunch of economic growth, and Rome was moving ahead economically during his time. So he must have made some good decisions economically. I think he had personality flaws, but they said that he probably was a pretty good emperor. That's my understanding.
I don't know, but like I said,
he's known as a douchey motherfucker that self-promoted and did a bunch of fucking live acts on stage. This is a time in where if you were an actor or a performer, you were basically a hooker.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were respectable, you were not supposed to be on stage doing any kind of fucking music or any kind of acting. Nero was trying to break that tradition. He would go on stage and put on whole musical performances and stuff, and he was very proud of what he did. This was evidently like a huge disgrace for the Roman Empire. Yeah. They were kind of uptight, if you ask me. I don't see any problem with a dude being an emperor. Hey, I'm going to play a tune for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't really see a problem with it. Do you?
Freebird.
Let's just fucking play a tune.
If that's all he was doing.
Well, he was being the emperor too.
Although if he was making everybody listen and he was just boring the shit out of everybody and he sucked, that would kind of blow.
That's what Suetonius was saying.
That's what
okay.
That I kind of suspect that was probably the truth.
And then he's like, "Hey, don't fall asleep."
Because usually dudes that are that in your face about everybody has to watch me like play my latest lyre composition.
Yeah.
Usually they suck because like I said, if they were any good, the people would want to come see them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to force everybody. So I kind of like suspect that he was making people because he really sucked and everyone was just kind of like had to sit there and smile.
Okay,
and
all
like,
right. I'm going to give you that. But I'm going to counter that with the saying that maybe he was a revolutionary multimedia emperor.
Perhaps.
Who was trying to put on his own music videos during that time. Maybe he wasn't the greatest, but hey, he was trying.
Yeah, baby.
He was trying, I think,
Yeah.
There's something about one of the weird things about Roman society is that it was structured to where the patricians were supposed to be very honorable, noble, and uptight. But they weren't allowed to do any of the cool shit that average people liked. They weren't supposed to be gladiators. They weren't supposed to be any kind of artists or entertainers. That was for like fucking convicts and hookers and shit like that. But there was too much crossover. Fucking common culture liked that kind of stuff. So there was always this in Roman society, this kind of fucking urge for the rich people to be kind of like the poor people. You always kind of had guys who were emperors trying to become entertainers. You had fucking rich women trying to turn tricks for fun.
Yeah.
Because prostitutes were so popular. You know what I mean? That'd be like the equivalent of fucking rich girls making their own porn tapes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which that's already happened. So, in American culture, we know what they're talking about. I just find it strange, a lot of these parallels.
Yeah.
Of where the people at the very top are trying to gain popularity, you know what I mean, by embracing, I don't want to say the culture of the bottom, but working class culture. You know what I mean? That they also had a thing for that.
Yeah.
I always found that interesting.
It is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously, after Nero died, Locusta was kind of fucked. His successor was Emperor Galba, and he did not go in so much for this, hey, let's poison everybody kind of shit. So he actually had Locusta arrested and executed. Now, the very famous story, and probably most of what most people know about Locusta, is the probably urban legend that she was executed by being raped to death by a giraffe.
What?
Or by other wild animals.
I don't see that shit happening.
Yeah, that's kind of, like I said, when people talk about her, I feel like that's kind of the main thing that comes up. It's kind of like Catherine the Great and the Horse type of thing. It's like whenever somebody says Locusta, it's like, oh, she was raped to death by a giraffe. Yeah. That is probably not true. Where this story came from was actually from a writer named Apuleius. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. In his book, The Golden Ass, he actually did have The Golden Ass.
That sounds like a porn film.
It does, yeah.
Starring Nina Hartley.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's like in Goldfinger where they covered that girl with gold paint or whatever. If it was just her ass, then that would be that porn movie.
Fucking fun.
But yeah, he wrote the book The Golden Ass. Obviously, he was talking about a donkey, not a human ass.
Yeah.
He had a story about a person or a prisoner or something like that who was raped to death by animals, or I don't know if it was specifically by a giraffe or by other types of wild animals or whatever. However, he did not specify that this was Locusta, and he also apparently made the claim that this was actually a fictional story, so he wasn't telling it like it was a true thing that happened. But I do feel like this story kind of got associated with Locusta. Probably in later years, because I feel like it came up like in kind of an encyclopedia of serial killers that came out fairly recently. So I feel like that's kind of where that association came from. But it appears from another writer back then called Cassius Dio that Locusta was probably just dragged through the streets in chains and then just executed in a normal way, like
Which is
Romans would do.
strangulation.
Which, so because he named like some other prisoners that were also, done the same way. So they feel like probably that. I mean, rape to death by a giraffe does sound a lot splashier for sure.
That's that fanciful shit that the Romans were into.
But I don't think, and I mean, I do feel like, I don't know if this is the case or not, because didn't they say like in some of the shows at the Colosseum and stuff where let's have women raped by animals? It's like, it does sound like something they would do, but I don't think that they killed her that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think she was just, like I said, just like a regular prisoner. She was just dragged
Before
through the street in
gladiatorial
chains.
fights, one of the things that the Romans would do, they have these animal hunts.
Yeah.
Guys would go out there and they try to hunt these fucking exotic animals, and by most accounts it was pretty damn pitiful, because you'd have a guy out there trying to hunt shit like ostriches. You know what I mean? And there's these or they're out there trying to fucking hunt lions, and lions aren't very violent, when you put them in the damn arena. Okay.
They're just like, I just want to sleep. Man.
Yeah,
Leave me alone.
well, evidently a lot of times the lions would submit and stuff. Like, no, don't hurt me. Animals outside of their normal environment aren't very entertaining if you were to try to put them into a fucking, into an arena type situation to eat people. They wouldn't do it. They'd run.
Yeah. They'd be like, what the fuck am I doing here? This is weird.
Yeah. And
I don't like this situation.
There are even ancient accounts from fucking like educated people who saw it. They said, "Oh, it's just pitiful."
Boo.
Boo. Yeah. Because the animals did not fucking.
Come on, eat
the animals
guy.
didn't put on a good show.
Yeah. Because why would they?
The Roman imagination would fucking, you know what I mean?
It sounded like a good idea.
It sounded like it was going to be a good idea. They did have people eaten by fucking leopards and lions, but usually had to tie the dude to a damn stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And make the lion attack the guy.
Keep poking the stick with the guy.
With the guy in the
lion,
stick,
lion's like, all right, fine, I'll eat him. Jesus.
Yeah,
leave me alone.
Animals are not natural entertainers.
No.
In a situation where there's fucking thousands of people in bleachers watching.
Well, can you imagine what that would be like for an animal? They don't know what the fuck is going on.
Especially like, lions and fucking leopards. They're from the African fucking savannah, you know what I mean? In their own pride, their own family. And the lions, the male lions are not the hunters, the females are.
Yeah.
So the shit usually didn't work out.
I can see
And this
that.
whole thing about having animals rape women, that's fantasy. That's something that a fucking Roman made up in his mind. That's just not going to happen.
Somebody into bestiality.
Yeah,
porn.
that's just not going to happen in a fucking in an arena with fucking thousands of people fucking going. It's just not going to happen.
Do it. Get her, giraffe.
Animals would get freaked out under those conditions. And
I'm having a hard time imagining the logistics of a giraffe raping a woman.
Yeah, that's just something somebody made up because a giraffe's big.
Yeah.
So you would think that
giraffe penis is way the hell over a human woman's head.
Yeah, and you would think that would be like quite a spectacle. You know what I mean?
Now I'm imagining it. Thanks.
Yeah, and some people might be like, Tom, what the fuck do you know about giraffe? My mom took care of a giraffe. She had it in her barn for a while. I live in fucking Florida. Actually, it was 2 or 3 of them. And zebras. I can show you the pictures. Fucking, my mom was one of the first women to try to ride a zebra. Yeah. You never really could ride one.
I've heard that they can't really be domesticated.
They're too fucking crazy.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to get a giraffe to fuck some chick in front of
I just feel like, and to do it to such an extent that she dies.
No.
I just can't see that happening.
No, fucking most of those animals will kill themselves trying to get away from you.
Yeah.
When they go
like
into a panic.
That's not a situation that they're used to being in. It's like, who the fuck are all these people looking at me? Yeah. Why am I in this fucking middle of this shit that's not where I normally live? Why is everyone yelling at me?
The most believable account of any kind of animal hunt was that I remember reading was they sent a guy down there to fucking hunt a bunch of fucking ostriches with a bow. And the arrows had big moon crescent shaped blades, and he was shooting the heads off of them, and the crowd was booing it because it would look stupid as shit. Okay,
I can see that. Also, that's not very
chasing down bears and trying to kill them. All right, bears are not as violent as people think they are. I fucking run into them in my backyard all the time. Okay, it's a big overgrown dog.
Well, black bears at least.
Yeah. Well, even fucking Kodiak bears, you can go on YouTube and see videos of guys that have them, in enclosures, and petting the damn bear and telling the bear how much they love the bear, and the bear, rah.
Yeah, I love you too, man.
Yeah,
At least
yeah.
until I don't, and then I'll bite your guys off.
Now, will a bear kill you? Fucking right, they will.
Yeah.
But
Go watch Grizzly Man
yeah,
if you don't believe
yeah.
me.
It's just
That was fucked up.
There's a lot of variation in a bear. Bear is a complicated organism. It has a pretty big brain. They're fucking huge. There are good bears and bad bears, just like there are good people and bad people. And most of the time, animals in an arena type situation would just fucking freeze and freak out, and they go on the defensive.
Well, like I said, understandably so.
Yeah, and
it's not a situation they're used to being in.
most writings of the time say that the animal hunt part of the gladiator show was not very popular
Yeah.
because of that the animals did not cooperate.
Well, yeah, because you can get humans to do what you want,
But you can't get animals.
but you can't get animals to do what you want.
this is all
Not
part of
in
the
same-
Roman.
Not to the same
This
extent.
is the part of the Roman imagination that an animal is like a monster and you can fucking fight it.
Yeah.
You have to have an animal that wants to fight you to make a fight.
Yeah.
And that's usually
I
not
mean,
what
generally, and like ones you see in shows nowadays are like trained.
happens. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you just like throw an animal in there that you got out of the wild, that
They
shit's
run.
not going to work out.
No,
They're
they
just going
run.
to be like, no, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I tell you what, man, fucking, you know what I mean? Some of the most scariest creature in the world, the goddamn fucking Egyptian cobra. I ran across one when I was in the army in fucking Egypt. A cobra will run from you. They don't fucking...
Most animals will.
Yeah,
Like I
they
said,
just
they
run
don't want to
from-
get killed.
Yeah, they don't do
You're
the
bigger
fuck-
than them.
They don't do the thing where they fucking bow up and make the hood. I saw one of them fucking out in the fucking Sinai Peninsula, That's a cobra. I ran it down and it just continued to run and it vanished. It
Like,
outran
fuck
me.
no!
Ah!
He's going to step on
I
me.
thought it would fucking bow up and do the fucking cobra thing. It didn't do it.
Well, that's what happens from watching too many.
I was watching too many movies.
Ricky Tikki Tavi too many.
You know where I
times.
got that from?
Where?
I got that from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Where fucking,
Yeah, because he
Indy
fell down.
falls and the fucking cobra comes
It
up.
would it would do that if you fucked with it, sure.
Yeah, but they just run.
But most of the time,
Yeah.
like most of the snakes I've come across, they just like they're scared of you. Like I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
you're bigger than them
Yeah, that cobra
by a
outran me.
large margin.
That cobra outran me easily. Just,
Yeah. I'm out of here. Fuck that. Ooh, look how blurry this shit is getting.
Yeah, I let
Is
him-
that is that you because you're moving so much? Look at that.
That's weird.
How did it go like that?
I don't know.
Oh shit. Okay, I
There it is,
fixed
there
it.
it is.
Man, that's fucked up. I was gonna say I was just about to
Weird shit.
end the show, and then I thought it was gonna go all like fucked up on me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sorry about all the blurring.
Go ahead.
We just went into another dimension. All right,
Yeah.
so that will probably do it for this rambling discussion of ancient Rome. Hope you
Yeah.
guys enjoyed it.
It was kind of a discussion of ancient Rome, just the weird shit that happened back then.
The weird shit that happened back then, amongst
Yeah.
and we've only really just scraped the surface. I just
There's
picked
actually
out.
a bunch of other shit we could talk about.
That's what I mean. I just picked out
from
like a few things that I randomly found that I thought were interesting. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because mass
I have
graves
to-
and poisoners.
I have to
always love that kind of
polish
shit.
back up on my Roman history, but fucking I fucking used to love that shit, and as a kid, just read about it forever. More of it. There's new stuff that they know now. You know what I mean? It was a very interesting. Rome, very much like the United States in certain ways.
Yeah.
Kind of like the United States and Brazil combined. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's wrap up episode 179. And remember, if you like the show, please like, share, subscribe on all your social media. Tell your friends and family, even your enemies, about us. It really does help a lot.
Yeah, share and look, contribute. We could always use more patrons.
That's right. If you would like
Patrons
to
help the
financially support the
That's
show,
right.
that would be much appreciated.
Patrons drive the show.
We can have a Patreon page, patreon.com/13 o'clock podcast. Or we also have, if you go to the blog, 13o'clockpodcast.wordpress.com, there is a button in the sidebar that goes to a PayPal account. If you'd like to give a one-time donation, any little bit is much appreciated. That will do it for episode 179. We will see you next time. Bye.